Oh, come on, play. Okay, you know what? Screw it. We're going without the intro. Hello, folks. It's NCommander, and look, I have a webcam. Um, it has been an interesting time here, especially in New York City. And you may notice that I'm running Windows. In fact, I'm even running a version of Windows from this decade. It's even supported. It is Windows Server 2016 evaluation, because tonight we are going to be talking about information security, OPSEC, and other similar topics. So I run Linux personally, but God damn it, Jack. God damn it, Jack. Jack. I next time I see you face to face, I'm going to sit there with a copy of the broken window fallacy, and I'm going to educate you. It will, and oh, you know, that'll be a Jack Must Suffer episode. We have NCommander ones. Oh wow, that is way too loud. I'm sorry. Figures the one time I actually get the music working, and I'm now having volume issues. Okay, so here's what we're covering. We're still listed as offline. Oh, what? Why are we listed as offline? What went wrong? I pushed the button. What? Oh, that's what happened. No. Okay. I know what I'm doing. And yes, we have the NCommander facepalm cam now. Are we? I'm assuming we're on air now. Please tell me we're on air. And if we're not on air, I will... You know what? I've got save icons. I will use them. They will protect my data. And yes, that is in fact a DOS floppy right in my hand. I also have Borland C. So anyway, information security. I'm going to make one more attempt to try and get the audio levels on this to work correctly. If the background music's overpowering, let me know. Okay. Yeah, that should be good. Okay. So anyway, this is a standard Windows install. The only software I've added to this is Firefox. Primarily because the default web browser on Server 2016 doesn't have Edge. And let's be honest, Internet Explorer 11 should have been taken out pasture and throttled quite a long time ago. Oh, Microsoft Mixer. Oh, I wonder if my old coworkers are going to tune in. There is an irony of the guy that actually designed FTL not streaming on FTL, but that's a story for another night. So one of the big things I wanted to cover is data security and basically Big Brother's watching you. So I've installed Wireshark in this VM. I have theoretically installed Wireshark in this VM. Where's my Wireshark? There's my Wireshark. So the reason I wanted to show that... God damn it. Oh, the demo gods have already struck. I don't know if I restarted after I installed Wireshark. Come on. Oh, this is off to a good start, folks. Okay, I'm going to restart the VM. Let's see here. Application unstable. So the reason I wanted to talk about this, though, is a big issue that we've been having is we've seen a lot of use of metadata collection over the past few years. And given the fact that, at least here in New York City, there's a long history of surveillance of devices through, like, the Link NYC, and this is also a problem in New Jersey. I wanted to cover what metadata is, web browser security, using better mail clients. Yes! It worked! Standard Windows IT admin. If when in doubt, reboot. So normally we say thou shall use encryption. Port 443. But there is a problem with just encrypting data blind. So as you can see here, I've got Wireshark capturing data. And let's and to those in the Soylent News community that have joined us when I post the article, thank you for coming by. As you can see, we have our live post here. The problem that you run into is even though that the data is encrypted, you can still see the actual connection. So this is what we call metadata in the field. Specifically, my ISP and anyone who controls the internet backbone, and in this case I mean like the NSA, and I'm being very literal about that, they can still see that this user connected to soylentnews.org. They can't see the content of it because, as you can see, it's encrypted. But this is why you need to be able to protect yourself and need to understand the importance of metadata. The situation gets a lot worse when we also talk about email. And then you have web browsers that, shall we say, like to phone home. For example, Chrome, basically if you're using Chrome, it's a more or less invite to Google to know everything about you. Now, I am not going to sign into my personal Google account here. I am currently liberating myself from Google, but I haven't quite finished the process. But with Google browsers, specifically with Chrome, every website you save is stored to the history list. The history list is then uploaded to Google. So essentially, Google has a track using $VPN Club. Well, I don't know how good the $VPN Club is. If there are any, maybe I can use them as a poor man's dollar razor club. I'm getting to the point that the beard needs to be trimmed. But this is where we boil down to it. So this is the importance of using encryption. And when we talk about email, the situation gets a lot uglier because email was never designed with security in mind. One of the biggest problems is that it's subject to what's called a stripped TLS attack. So, this is one of those things I need a copy of PuTTY. This is actually something I want to demonstrate in real time. Let's see here. Let's grab PuTTY because we're going to talk to a mail server. I'm going to show exactly how this attack works. So stable. Let's grab wrong installer. I need the 64-bit one. I've had weird issues with 32-bit PuTTY on Linux, on Windows, so I never figured out why. But so when you send email from point to point on the internet, it uses a protocol that we. Wow, I am just having search fails tonight. Where is PuTTY? Recently added. Here we go, PuTTY. As you can tell, there is a there. I'm clicking. Work, damn you. I could install the Windows Telnet client. I'm not sure I'm that desperate yet. Okay. When in doubt. There we go. So if I go to mail.google.com on port 25, I believe that is Google's mail server. Okay, that is not it. They have a weird one posted. I'm going to use my personal one. Or actually, I'll use Soylent News because that's a server I control. I'm the administrator for. So whenever you do a email sent from point to point, it's sent by SMTP. The first command that's sent is called an ehello. So I'm going to identify myself as someguy.com. Oh, you're kidding me. So you can tell I don't test these in. Technical difficulties, folks. Technical difficulties. So what I'm trying to show is that the ability to go encrypted with SMTP is what's called opportunistic. Opportunistic SMTP requires that the server announce what's called a start TLS flag. It can be stripped out in flight and force email to be downgraded. So when you're using standard email, it doesn't protect you. Now, people say that VPNs provide security, and to an extent this is true, but it's also misleading. The problem with using a VPN is all your traffic comes out from a central endpoint. So let me see here. How do I want to do this? If I use a VPN to go to I don't have one set up, unfortunately, that I can do quickly. But if I'm using, say, NordVPN, all my traffic is going to come out of NordVPN, but I can still collect metadata information that goes to them. That sort of metadata information can then be processed further. So if I'm connected to a VPN and I'm using Thunderbird, I send an email, that can then be correlated back to the original thing. Using a VPN does provide some security. Specifically, it does help prevent passive wiretapping, but it doesn't help prevent attacks on the VPN infrastructure. And it's also not a magic bullet, because you still have Chrome that is phoning home and sending your user list, straight to Google. So let's start with browser security. Firefox has a much saner set of defaults. It does offer synchronization, but you have to sign into it, and it doesn't do that by default. I'm just used them as an example because God knows I've seen so many NordVPN ads in the last, like YouTube videos that embed it in the last few days, that it's what popped to mind. It's like it's not so much subliminal messaging as it's bliminal messaging. And if anyone gets that reference, thank you. You have good taste. But a VPN is not a solution in itself. This is also a problem when using Tor, although to a much less extent, because the Tor browser intentionally does not tattle. So Firefox is a pretty good recommendation, but if you're like me, you prefer the Chrome-based browser, what I recommend is Bravo, and I'm going to grab it, and I will drop the link in chat as soon as I get the right link. Sorry, Brave, not Bravo. There are days. So Brave is built. So Chrome is partially open source. It is essentially, Chrome itself is built around what's called Chromium. Chromium can be built as from source code. It works, but it's missing a lot of features compared to full-blown Chrome. Brave, on the other hand, adds in privacy protection and gives you a nice, easy migration path straight from Chrome. And it looks more or less identical once the installation has done its job. So just as step 1 and 2, get off the Google bandwagon, use Firefox or use Brave. There's a lot of other ones that are fairly decent, but those are the two that I feel comfortable specifically advocating for. And this is not a paid placement. No one is paying me to do this. This is me feeling important, wanting to provide information to the community. So unless, at first glance, it doesn't look all that different. When you sign in, it gives you the option of what browser to import. If you import from Chrome, it will also import all of your extensions, settings, bookmarks, so forth and so on, minus the usual what do you do as far as integration when leaving Google's ecosystem? We are going to get to that. I'm specifically going to talk about password management. If you want more than that, like browser and tab synchronization, there are options. But you need to recognize that every time you use something like that, it means that there's more and more metadata being collected in a central location. So there is a realistic risk that goes on with that. And SidePocket is currently mining the chat. In the continuing theme that the demo gods don't love me, I couldn't get browser notifications working. So just as a shout out to Passenger B, Guinea Strata, Al Chala, blah blah blah, and Nikita 503, and all the other ones. Keep those follows up if you want to see me mangle your username. So, right, train of thought, derail, just happened, yes. Right, Brave. So, Brave also gives you the nice option of switching from using DuckDuckGo, which I highly recommend. Now, DuckDuckGo does have a little bit of a... So, for those who are not familiar, let's search for something. Let's say, let's see here, Secret of Life. So DuckDuckGo basically works like Google. The results I find are not exactly the greatest. I've had some hits or misses. So one really handy thing to do with DuckDuckGo is what's called !G, and give it a moment. And then it will just give you the Google search results, and that works in the bar up here as well. Then on top of it, you're going to want, what I recommend adding is Privacy Badger. I believe Brave has something built like this built into the box these days, but I still like Privacy Badger. It's an EFF project. Wow, suddenly my internet is running very slowly. So drop the link. There's the link. Enjoy. So what Privacy Badger does is it shows it looks for trackers on the website and blocks them. Another good one for this is what's called Ghostery. The one catch you need to know about Privacy Badger is sometimes it will break websites. I actually have a problem with Discord with Privacy Badger. I have to whitelist Discord or it simply will not load correctly. And also, ironically, Google AdSense, my account with them, gets blocked because it's where all the ads come from. So it's there. So another good extension to have is, again, Brave has a built-in blocker, but uBlock Origin is also fairly good, and it also works with Firefox. So again, I'm going to drop the links as soon as they load. Let's see here. How do I want to do this? Here we go. Nope, I want uBlock Origin. Here. Wrong link. Go back. I do not know why this is running like a glacier tonight. Okay. Yes, and thank you for the reminder, SidePocket. DEF CON 201 is an Electronic Foundation Alliance member, which is part of the EFF. The EFF is one of the big champions for civil privacy and protections on the internet. So while we've been doing all this, I've left Wireshark running in the background. And there's a reason I've been leaving Wireshark running in the background. Because if I go to conversations, you can still see that I am connected. You can still see the websites I am touching. And there is actually there is a second side channel attack here, which is DNS. So if I switch my filter to DNS, and you can actually see fairly accurately every website I am accessing. Like you can see I've gone to Brave, I've gone to Google, I loaded Privacy Badger. DNS is the gift that keeps on giving as far as security nightmares. And there has been some efforts in recent years for encrypted DNS, and quite frankly, I have an entire rant worked up for that. But as you can see, modern web browser, basically you leak data like a sieve unless you know you're mindful about it. And I'm not even getting to advanced techniques. This is what's basically what happens in the box. So if you want something a little bit more powerful or a little bit more privacy inducing, it's time to pull out Tor Browser. Now, Tor Browser, for those who aren't familiar, Tor stands for the Onion Router. It's a method of routing traffic through multiple Tor nodes over the internet to basically anonymize your information. You can use Tor with a TCP/IP web application, but what you should do, and let's get the link dropped right there, is you should use Tor Browser. The reason for this is Tor Browser is specifically configured to prevent information from leaking, so it all goes through Tor. It also includes NoScript with a rather sane set of defaults that help prevent more metadata and information. Tor Browser is available for Android. I don't think they have an iOS port just because Apple. But please correct me if I'm wrong. I am not an iOS user, so anything I say about Apple is likely to be wrong. So Tor Browser at first glance is pretty much Firefox. It's what it's built on. They build on the extended support releases for Firefox. And if we go to checkip.9dns.org, oh yes, thank you, I missed that. You can. That is not my IP address. I don't actually. Where is that IP address? But basically, whenever you use Tor, it connects to a random exit node. There are ways to influence the behavior of the exit nodes. But the other problem you're going to run into with using Tor is a lot of websites block it. Fairly, and with justifiable reason, because Tor's anonymity means that it can be used for a lot of abuse. Wikipedia, as far as I remember, like for example, does not allow anonymous edits. They may have even gone as far as blocking logins because of the sheer amount of vandalism coming from Tor. So it's very good at accessing web services, but it only goes so far. If I sign into a Google account from Tor, rip anonymity, and then if we pull out good old Wireshark, and this is going to crash at some point, you can still see that if we scroll all the way to the bottom, you can still fingerprint Tor traffic being sent over the wire. So again, it's not the magic bullet. I mean, if you really don't want to be tracked, take a hammer and apply directly to the cell phone and the desktop and more. But these are just the basic steps you can use. If you're using Brave or if you're using Tor, you've already gone a major step up in your security. And for those that, hold on, sorry, I just realized my webcam is cockeyed. If you just start using Tor, Brave, and have Firefox with a good set of add-ons like Privacy Badger, and SidePocket will probably start dropping links in chat, it will immediately elevate you. Now, the problem is that how do you deal with communications? For example, on my day-to-day, I tend to use SMS. I still am using Google. You can run it. You can, in fact, do that. The reason we don't recommend using something besides Tor Browser is because Tor Browser is designed to be resilient against side channel attacks, not to be confused with SidePocket. If we go to add-ons, it has what's called NoScript, and it also has changes to the core code base to make sure that Tor Browser isn't accidentally leaking something. One of the big problems you have, if I can actually demonstrate this. I can remember how this works in Tor. It's been a while since I've done the way this works under Linux is a little different than Windows. But if I go to Brave, go to settings, I'm really hoping I'm remembering this correctly. And I go to, yep, there it is, new private window in Tor. Sorry, I was thinking of the old way to do this. You do have this, which, again, will give me a random IP address, and it will probably be different than the one I'm getting Tor Browser, because I don't think it uses the Onion. I think it has its own inclusion of the Onion router. So those are two ways to get quick and dirty privacy. Now, you still have a problem with communication. If you sign into your Google account using Tor, first, Google's going to throw a bitch fest, because what will happen is that most Tor exit nodes cause spam Google. So you hit Google's automatic rate limiting. I might even be able to cause this to happen. If we go to google.com and let's search sometime today, Google. Oh, yeah, see, here's the other problem. Because this exit point, I believe this is German. Or no, I think that may be Polish. I don't know. It's in a language I don't speak. That is another thing you're going to notice when you're using Tor. But if we look up something like DEFCON 201, there's a very good chance, it didn't happen this time, but Google will ask you to solve a CAPTCHA, and it becomes really difficult. Thank you, Jack. Apparently, we have Linguist Jack in the chat tonight. So that's the long and short with Tor. It's good for surfing the web, but you still want to communicate with other people. So up until about 3 days ago, the answer we would have said is Keybase is great. That's no longer the case. For those who are not aware, Zoom bought Keybase on the basis of providing actual security to Zoom. Zoom then announced that the to the end-to-end encryption will be for paid customers only because they want to cooperate with law enforcement. I'm going to leave it to the people in chat to explain why why this is a problem. Yes. Oh, that is a very good point. No, wait a minute. Side pocket. They changed the default in Tor Browser. If I try search, it's DuckDuckGo by default. Oh, I see. Hold on. I just realized what you're saying. So there are two ways to use DuckDuckGo. They have what are called onion set nights. The reason for... So Tor gives you access to what are called .onion URLs. These are hidden protocols, or what are called Tor hidden services. DuckDuckGo offers a hidden service. There is a performance penalty because instead of going through free Tor proxies, you're going through 6. But it does mean that the traffic never leaves the Tor network, so only you and DuckDuckGo gets to see the traffic. So I do recommend setting this option. Thank you for the reminder, SidePocket. But NCOMMANDER's brain has crashed. But this gets to it. So what I wanted to talk to more is about communication. Now, there are quite a few options for, shall we say, end-to-end encryption. There is Matrix for one. Oh, that's an unfortunate search term. Matrix chat. Matrix and Riot are two that offer full end-to-end encryption. So there's Matrix and then Riot. I haven't had the best user experience with either. Riot has gotten better in the last year, but I've still seen Riot go kind of south. So, but for those that are currently on Keybase or want to have a better end-to-end user experience, or end-to-end encrypted experience, these are two that I can currently say that are not sending your data straight to the they're not currently pulling off any shady BS. And I'm actually going to pull the article that SidePocket just linked in chat because I think I need to be very specific about this. So when COVID happened, Zoom was already a thing. Zoom was never really built with security in mind. It had some encryption to their servers, but it wasn't what we call end-to-end encrypted, which means that Zoom could man in the middle in this. Security people had noted this for years, but it wasn't a huge, it wasn't a big topic because there was a lot of other choices. Then COVID happened and everyone got on using Zoom, and Zoom ended up buying Keybase, which up until was a fairly good solution for end-to-end encryption, encrypted file sharing, basically an all-in-one shop. The DEFCON 201 has a Keybase. I find the app's a little laggy, but on the whole, it does exactly what it says to do. So what happened? So Zoom got a lot of bad press because of their end-to-end security not existing. So they bought Keybase, and it's like, yes, look, a company that actually cares about their users. And then this bullshit happened. I apologize if I'm using some crude language, but basically they announced this dropped yesterday or Monday. That they basically have decided that they're going to roll out end-to-end encryption, but only if you pay them. Now, there are reasons why this may be important or why this might be understandable. I don't normally agree with them, but then they doubled down and decided the reason that they're not supporting end-to-end encryption for free accounts is because they want to cooperate with law enforcement. Now, I don't know about where the folks here are, but here in New York City, there's been a lot of protesting. In my neighborhood specifically, there's also been a fair bit of rioting and broken windows. I know most of the last night wasn't so bad, but on Monday it was there were shots fired. So this seems like take gun out, shoot it at your own foot, and it's like a cross between a pony award and a Darwin award, and I really don't know how to classify this. Side Pocket, do you want to actually get on call and talk about this more? Because I think you have a lot of pent up rage, and I would like to provide a useful venue for this. Okay, folks. I'm going to get Side Pocket on call here. So, or he'll just immediately. Okay, my voice is my passport. Verify me. Can you hear me? Testing 1 2. Okay, I see Side Pocket talking. I don't actually hear him. Where is Side Pocket's? Where is Side Pocket's audio? Okay. See, here the problem. Okay, so let me switch the view so you can. Yeah, that's actually a bad idea because then you'll see all my contacts. NCOMMANDER averted fail. Okay. So your desktop audio. Side Pocket, say something. Test. Oh. I think he dropped. I just realized I had my speakers turned down. That's why I couldn't hear him. Testing.
Can you hear me?
I hear you. Can the stream hear you? That's the question.
I'm going to slightly turn down my volume because I'm listening on the computer.
Yeah, I can't have the stream up, so I don't know if your audio is going through.
The wrong thing. Hang on 1 second.
So, folks, since we have a lot of you know.
Now I'm in pure talk mode on Discord.
Yep. Well, let me introduce you so for those who don't know, Side Pocket is one of the co-founders of DEF CON 201 with our own GI Jack, who is currently in our chat. Huh?
Currently trolling.
Yeah, so, well, it's Jack. Why do we have to say this? So Side Pocket is our master of unlocking. He hosts our own show. He's also a thing that we bring out to make social media companies cry. So Side Pocket, take it away.
Yeah, no. So this whole thing happened last night. Just to add some elements to that, because we pretty much covered a big chunk of it. There is a major info security person who is apparently on the encryption team. I'll try to post links for it later. Who kind of communicated the situation a lot better, where they're basically right now trying to conceptualize the balance between having to deal with subpoenas from law enforcement to making sure there's encryption, as well as like doing things, for example, like any of the nonprofit educations will get the free version with the end-to-end encryption, even though it's the free version. The issue here is one that for public use, the encryption is built under a paywall, when us and a lot of other users have argued that, for example, when we had Zoom, and we're pretty much going to cancel soon, let me think for a second. Oh yeah, that the fact that Zoom already has a time limit on the free version is like incentive enough to get the paid version, that they could have kept encryption for both paid and free, and just add quality of life features such as customer support and stuff like that for the paid version. No one would have been too upset about that. But the fact that they worded it in this way, and it's just an absolute ridiculous mess here. In our opinion, as we wrote, this is the from a gamer's perspective, the moment where Microsoft at E3 with Xbox One destroyed their brand by basically advertising. They made a bungle on all their rivals, which, by the way, Zoom has plenty of rivals listed here. You have, in varying qualities, Riot, Jambly, Jitsi, Signal, all sorts of them, where even if they have paid versions, the freed versions offer either encryption or end-to-end encryption, and all their rivals have to do is basically talk about how they can still offer their encryption for free, and like Zoom's honestly in a mess right now. The bigger issue, which Keybase hasn't responded to yet, is that while Keybase is owned by Zoom, I also know some of the team from there. They haven't responded yet. That's why DEF CON 201's position right now is a wait and see to see how the Keybase team responds. If they either drag their feet on this or don't do anything, we're going to permanently move. Right now, we're looking into a temporary sources. The NCOMMANDER is probably going to bring up some on this show, because honestly, even though the core stuff of Keybase is closed source, the client itself is public. We would not be surprised, for example, if some of the people on the Keybase team fork away and still use like the code from the client, but make their own decentralized or something encrypted core that would basically be like, hey, we're starting Keybase again, but without the BS from Zoom. So right now, Zoom is really screwed. Keybase is unknown, but because Zoom is their parent company, that's why we can't recommend it right now until something's cleared up for good or for worse.
Yeah. So just to add on top of that, what's really face palming here is that this is the one market where Google has no credibility. So it's really, I this at this point, this is where I need to drop a link to Killed by Google.
Sure.
Um, but the fact of the matter is, the only companies that have had really good, I feel very wrong saying this, but Apple is leading the cause here, but FaceTime only works with their own platform.
Right.
So and the fact that Apple's leading the cause here really is wrong in many ways. So just to give you an idea of why Google is not credible. Not counting the fact that Google tends to is data collection extraordinaire. But let's see here. We've had Hangouts, we've had Chat, we've had Duo, we've had Buzz, we had Wave. Let's see here. We've had Google Chat. Let's see here. I know there's.
Stadia probably soon.
Huh?
Stadia probably soon.
Oh. The FUD heard round the world. That's about the only way I can describe it. So, as far as mobile
real
app,
quick, I do want to point out here about what you were. Actually, I forgot. Keep going on. I literally just forgot what I was going to say.
so
Sorry.
for one-to-one communications, my personal recommendation at the moment is Signal. Signal is built on free and open source software, and they also have full protocol documentation. They're built on top of XMPP with peer to end-to-end encryption.
You need a phone number for it, but there's ways to get disposable phone numbers where you can get Signal actually, and I'll post the link in a moment. Tech Learning Collective has a great article about doing that for Signal.
Yes, and the Signal developers themselves have recognized this as a problem, and they have recently started work on fixing it. I don't know when that's coming. The problem with Signal is, while it does support face-to-face camera, that's limited to 2, and the group messages, I believe, also have an upper limit. So Teams and WebEx. Oh boy, where do I start with
I
those?
also want to recommend, which we also recommended on Instagram, that if you have, if you're looking for like Signal is a good base one. If you are in a nightmare situation, you need an upgrade from that, and you have an Android phone, because it's unfortunately not on iOS right now. They're working on that. There is a program called Briar. We post the link in chat, the briarproject.org. It's a peer-to-peer communication, end-to-end encryption, and not only can you pipe that through Tor, but let's say the cellular networks and Wi-Fi networks are going down, or they're getting stingrayed or whatever. If your phone is in your local area and you have your Bluetooth on, as cautious as this is, it will peer-to-peer connect, doing the end-to-end encryption with all the local phones that are also on your list that you've added. So that's like a really great resource where if you need a security step up from Signal that's a bit more advanced, and especially if all communications are going to get cut, we recommend Briar Project if you have to bring your phone out to something.
Yeah. Now, one thing I do want to make a point, though, is that modern smartphones are fucking crap, and I don't use strong language on this channel lightly, but they are not. They are one step away from 1984 telescreens, because at the moment Microsoft is ironically Microsoft was the least bad in this, but
for once, to some degree, yeah.
Are you kidding? I had to pry my mom's Windows mobile phone out of her hand. She held on to that thing for a very long time. But here's the problem. Your standard Android phone, there's only a limit to how much OEMs can customize it and use the Android branding. To use the Android branding, you have to include the Play Store. You can't include a third-party, or you may be able to include a third-party store, but you also have to have the Play Services API more or less baked into the API to it. So you basically have something that's going straight to Google. iOS is actually a little bit better in this regard, but because Apple has been very clear on they encrypt iCloud and other information and is fought actually to protect their users. So I will give full props to Apple here, but you're dealing with a walled garden, so you pick your poison. There are alternatives. There is the Purism phone. There is if you have a phone that can have a unlocked bootloader, you can install what is it?
Our
Liberate.
recommended one that I'm going to put in chat right now is Graphene OS for Android-based phones. If you're able to get to boot and root it, and TechLore actually has a video which I'm going to post right now on the steps you have to take to get you purchase an unlocked phone and how to flash it if you've never flashed an operating system for the first time.
When restrictions have finally ended here in the New York, New Jersey area, I'd like to actually do a workshop doing this with commodity phones.
Yes,
for
we're trying to figure out to do it on air in the meantime, but yeah, that would be great.
You probably don't know this side, Puck, because I don't think I've ever brought it up, but I used to be a Silogen mod developer, so...
right.
Yeah.
NCommander is... my joke is NCommander, half-jokingly, has worked on, like, so many... he's been the unknown worker on so many projects that, like, thousands to millions of persons use. It's ridiculous, which is why when we thought of, hey, we're going to introduce a show to DEF CON 201, you were literally the first person we thought of to do it.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that I make funny noises when things go bad.
We've noticed. That's why you also really got the live stream. Unless we have more stuff to say about it, will you guys tell me? Because I have a lot of positive stuff. I mean, there are obviously you're choosing a threat model. So all the stuff that everyone lists here as NCommander slowly dies, and I hope he's okay, is based after what your situation is. So even though all of our advice is useful, you need to apply it to how it applies to your situation. And so everything we're going to list has positives and negatives. It's all about balance and what your situation is. But I've used ProtonMail and Proton VPN for years, so I have a lot of good and in-depth things to say. But I want NCommander to go through it first if he wants to do that first.
I'm going to, but I'm going to expand on this slightly.
Sure. Because
so
I need to get a water break, so I'll be right back.
Yep, that's fine. So we are going to go into ProtonMail because as far as secure email goes, it's about as idiot-proof as possible. And when it comes to security, keep it simple, stupid is something that you should really adapt. And ProtonMail has a very good reputation. Now, for me personally, I don't actually use ProtonMail. I host my own mail server, and I sign my emails with SMIME or GPG. But that's because my main email, I am a public figure in a lot of development communities, and being able to host my own email also means I have less issues with mailing lists and other issues. There are sites that do block ProtonMail addresses. So this is something I recommend as an addition and not just a complete replacement for your currently existing email solution. It's not going to be tonight, but at some point I'm probably going to have hey, let's get off Google. Sorry, what Onion database leak? I don't think I've heard. I think that managed to slip under my radar.
That I've heard bits about that, and I'm glad that was actually brought up in chat because no matter how much you fortify yourself with technology, the biggest way that they will be able to track you or any sort of like chinks in your armor is going to be your habits, or what is often described as both recon OPSEC and OSIN, because based on your habits is going to do that. So again, a lot of people, even if you use Tor, if you're using your real name on Tor, if you're using Gmail, if you're using like really common like stuff where big companies are notorious for tracking, Tor is only going to mitigate so much of that. So a lot of it, again, is your threat model and your behavior. So thank you, Bamboo Genie, for bringing that up.
Yeah, I actually want to bring up that as a point. So for those who have tuned in before, I run Linux as my normal system. And when Windows normally gets pulled out, it's because I am abusing myself of old versions. The reason why I installed Windows for this particularly is I do recognize most people use it. You're not going to become an OPSEC master from just watching a couple of things. It's something you kind of have to live and breathe. And even the best screw up. There has been some rather notable fails, and I am not going to cite examples because I have no desire to dox anyone. But what I'm telling you here is basic guidelines to begin. Because if I wanted to give you, if you wanted to be like the most secure kid on the block, you'd be running Tails operating system. You have to use, you really have to write Tails out. Running off a live CD and have burner laptops, and even then you could still screw it up. The fact of the matter is, I know that that is beyond most people. Asking someone to write a bootable stick, I find, is a high barrier of entry. So I only, huh?
The key is that none of the stuff we say are ever going to be magic bullets, especially if you only use one of these. But because we try again, and I'm glad you brought this up, Commander. There's different like threat model levels, and that's why a lot of times for like trying to teach beginners, we go for stuff that's like, you know, instant apps, simple install, stuff like that, and then we let them know of like more advanced stuff going up. But the main thing is that if you do some base things in a collective, it's again not going to be a silver bullet, but you would be surprised how much that stuff prevents. In terms of, for example, the Apple iPhone thing, the FBI had to admit that, as well as other law enforcement agencies, that one of the reasons why they were really hammering Apple to unlock the phone is because if providers don't unlock things for them, a simple like 16 character actually random, like truly random password, apparently it takes them between 6 months to a year at best in order to attempt to crack. And that's just using a base password that's properly done, not doing like insane Edward Snowden stuff even. So that's what we're saying here, is that's not a magic bullet, but if you use a bunch of stuff in conjunction at your threat modeling level, you're already going to do a lot better than a bunch of people on Tor using their Gmail account.
Pretty much. I mean, think about like this. You know, right now in New York City, we've got thousands of people protesting on the streets.
Yes.
Even if all of them were using just the basic techniques I'm outlining here, because trust me, there's a lot. I've got multiple versions of this talk. This is the entry level one. If I can get everyone just doing the entry level one, it's going to frustrate a lot of people that are trying to Big Brother us. And you know, I felt that, you know, I almost canceled this show because I normally keep this show very lighthearted, but I can't be silent during this period of time. So this is how we got here.
That's exactly what we thought too, leading up into this. We're actually going to make a video about, which we're actually shocked so far. We haven't had anyone online, even on minds.com of all places, complaining that we've been like too political or whatever, just because of the absolute mass severity and situation. And but I just want to say in advance, thank you, Commander, for formatting to your show like this, because you were given the option. You didn't have to do this, but you are doing this just because of your moral compass, and that's one of the reasons why, in our opinion, you're a DEF CON 201 member. I also just want to say before we go on here that Linux is also my main system. I basically boot Windows in order to do this live streaming stuff, just due to stability when it comes to apps. Jack, we will mention about Ninja OS. I want to kind of save it to a bit later, but I will say that another problem that we also have with security, and then I want Commander to go in depth onto something, is that we have this bad habit of saying like, well, you need to use like Gentoo Linux, and if you don't do that, then you're like a poser, like fascist militant. And there's a lot of people, for example, who have never used Linux and no one ever teaches them how to use it, or, for example, are stuck with Windows at work and things like that. So at least I always try to make sure that even though I let them know of things like Linux and Tor, that they are stuck with something, things they can do to try to mitigate that. So I will post in chat right now that there's 2 quick things you can do if you're forced to use Windows 10. There's a great program made by a bunch of German hackers called W10 Privacy, which will show you all of the metadata tracking and spying stuff that Windows 10 inherently built in, and you can turn them individually on and off. That also includes programs on your system. And then there's a great video that you can watch later. It was made 2 years ago, but a lot of it's still relevant. He's also made a follow-up video in that video of all the options you can go through Windows 10 to mitigate their Microsoft's own spying techniques as much as possible. So just wanted to put that out there.
If people want to see this, and I'm also going to step. I want to just step back and look at the other way. There is also a responsibility of server administrators and services that need to lock and secure their things. I was actually considering doing this. This is why Windows Server is installed, because if we pull out the if we pull out SSL Labs. A lot of people give you the the lock and do security, do completely, totally crap. Um, Saying I'm going to get to that in a moment. So depending, I want folks in to leave messages on Twitter or in chat throughout. I might host a second show this week going more into server configuration and specifically making IIS not be a pile of fail.
Yes, and we're also trying to. We had a great time streaming Thug Crowd last time, and we're not going to do this like once a week, but we're working on both with Thug Crowd and different people to see if we can do a privacy show, because that's a show that we really want to do.
So yep. So saying my ninjas, here's a point I wanted to bring up, and trust. I don't think I have met anyone in InfoSec who hasn't run into that argument. So the way I have used to describe this is ask them if they'd be okay if I had access to their email. If they said yes, then I'd ask, do they do online banking? And then they would say, they usually will say yes. And then it says, oh good, now I have complete access to your bank accounts. That line in conversation will sometimes specifically will get them to wake up, because you need to prove to people that they do in fact have things they want to hide. When you hear the phrase do you have something to hide, I'm just going to rearrange my windows here because I'm not.
That's perfectly fine. I was actually going to go into a mini rant about one, also if they have problems with this wrong window, show them this video. And the second thing about that is to kind of elaborate. Yeah, ask them. It's like, oh, cool, you have nothing to hide. Can I go to your house right now? Can I look under your bed? Hey, you have a girlfriend or boyfriend. Can I look at them naked? I mean, why are you upset? You have nothing to hide. There's a reason why we have public and private faces. It's part of human decency, democracy, and liberty overall. So just putting that out there.
Yeah, and that's a big thing. So this is a good time to do your rant, and you can also see the very ghetto thing I had to do. My webcam will not work correctly in OBS, so I am window capturing cheese to make that work. Something has gone horribly wrong in the NCOMMANDER stream stuff. So do you want to get that rant out, or do you want me to go into ProtonMail now?
No, I think we're good. I have comments to make on ProtonMail, so I'll do that after you say what you have to say, so take it away.
Okay, so let's jump back into ProtonMail. So as I previously said, your threat model is going. I'm going to literally register an account right here on camera. We are going to go through this right from the get-go. The other thing I want to show is the use of password managers, because
yes.
That's simple.
Something we couldn't show on air due to some security stuff, but yes.
Well, this is literally throwaways. So, my personal recommendation for regular users is I currently recommend LastPass. It's about as simple as you can get, and LastPass has Android and Android integration, although it's a little shaky. Chrome, Firefox, and even Edge integration, so it basically works. I'm not completely thrilled by the log me in bit, but I haven't had any serious problems with it, and it's what I use personally. The premium also gives you full integration and synchronization across multiple devices for $3, and I've never had a problem with that service. So again, this is not a paid advertisement. This is what I personally use. There are lots of other options. I'm pretty sure SidePocket's about to jump at the bit here.
There's two main ones and I will put this link later, but there's a great resource for all the stuff that we're talking about called privacytools.io. If you need a piece of software service or how to configure a web browser or what iOS that you should run at different level of threat models for privacy, I'll put that in way later, but that's a great resource. And they have two listed there that I agree with. I'll tell you the one that is often not brought up and one that I personally use, so I can directly say about it. So the first one is Bitwarden. Bitwarden will literally run on everything. The caveat with Bitwarden is that it's hosted in the cloud, which, to be honest, a lot of other password managers, I believe LastPass is also like this, where they host it either on their server. This is hosted encrypted. All your passwords are on a cloud. If you can, if you're privacy conscious, you know how to do it, you can host your own server for your own Bitwarden. If not, they have a general one for everyone to use, and they also have great policies around their privacy and data. Now, just because of my own thing, I'm always worried about putting passwords out there, like in terms of stored on the internet, even though individual websites have to store them on their back end. I personally like to localize everything to my system as much as possible, hence the threat modeling. So there's a common one that I personally love that's called KeyPass XC. You probably heard of, there's advertisements for KeyPass, and there's many variants of it. The XC one is the open source one that's made directly by hackers, so you can look and audit the code. That is available for Windows, Mac, and various forms of Linux. They also have plugins for most of the major browsers, including Chrome and Firefox, where you can sync your open KeyPass to your browser so that it will automatically detect where you put a password in. And lastly, even though I got recently informed this morning that they're not part of this team, but they do endorse it. If you get something we'll bring up later called F-Droid for your Android phone, because unfortunately KeyPass is not on iOS at this moment, there is a fork of KeyPass XC, a mirror I should say, on F-Droid called KeyPass DX that works the exact same way, and it uses the exact same code. So if you want to take all of your desktop passwords on KeyPass XC and bring it onto your Android phone, you can do that, because the way it localizes is it makes, I forget what the file extension is called, but it makes one file that's encrypted that holds that there, and you have to put in a separate password to unlock all of your passwords. So if you download your main password database, which is one file, to your phone, and then download KeyPass DX, and then put that password you normally use for KeyPass XC, all of your passwords, and it works the exact same way as on the desktop that you would use on the desktop, will now work on your Android phone. And both of those are really good other services. One, if you want to run your own cloud, or you don't mind a more encrypted cloud if you can't host one, and the other if you want to localize everything directly to your hardware.
Yep. So we did get one good question in chat, and while I answered this, can you see if we have any good follows? Because we've currently hit 25 viewers, which is really quite good for the evening.
Yeah, after we did that live stream with Thug Crowd, real quick, when we were leading up to Thug Crowd, we already had like 15 to 16 people follow us like before we even aired, and we actually had that during your show, which is why there was too many to count. But ever since we've done that, like, we've normally been decently popular. I don't really care or chart this, but literally after that show and all the stuff we've been helping out with activists, Nikita actually, I think, joked, if I remember correctly, that we might as well be the main DEF CON account at this point, of like how many people eyeball us. So I think this is the aftermath of that, which is good, because again, we're trying to, and I'm glad you're doing this show. All of our thing is we're currently, it's not that even we're against sponsors, we would have to heavily vet them, but we're not sponsored by anything. We're not doing anything on the back end. We want people to learn stuff, and to particularly learn to not do some mistakes that we've done in the past, because that's what being a hacker is. It's about opening that knowledge and passing that stuff down for the people that really need it and deserve it. And that's why we're doing these broadcasts. And that's why Commander does this show in between the entertainment of him freaking out every time a beeping noise happens.
So, okay, anyway, I do actually have a fairly good personal story here. So, yeah, making Side Pocket laugh. So, for those who don't know, I am one of the founders of SoylentNews.org. Now, if this looks like Slashdot, there is a very good reason for that. Because we forked from Slashdot, because Slashdot went very corporate and basically told their users to stick their thumb where the light no shine. So myself and a group of hackers, we dusted off the code to Slashdot.
I'll be right back.
Yep, no problem. Which at that point was about 6 to 7 years old. It was written in Perl for Apache 1.3, and we modernized it and we split it. And There's a lot of history to unpack here, but one of the big things that we had decided was we didn't want the site to be corporately sponsored because we did, in fact, I believe we did get at least one or two offers in the early days. But what had happened with Slashdot is it had been formed by Commander Taco, and then it was bought by, it changed hands a lot of times. I remember VA Linux had them for a long time. Man, remember those guys? They were the ones that made SourceForge. And then it got bought by Dice. And basically, it was the conversion of a community to an audience. And while that may not sound like an important distinction, an audience is someone that is buying your product and watching it. Like, go to the movie theater. What they say has no actual impact. When you go to the movie, your opinion has no impact on how that movie comes out, for the most part. I mean, there's been a couple of exceptions, but that is what an audience is. A community, people's input is specifically taken into account. We've had some really proud moments where, as a community, we have really done some really good stuff, and all the old posts are available here if you want to see them. But it shows and we have never accepted corporate money. When we originally, I founded the site out of my own pocket, and what had happened was we incorporated, it was what's called a public benefit corporation, or PBC. We had some difficult legal issues with incorporating as a not-for-profit, which is why we went this route. And ever since then, we've been able to raise about $3,000, give or take, per year to keep our lights on, have a little bit in the bank, and just manage from day to day. So when people come together, some real amazing things happen, and you don't need to look at corporate interests A or B. There are other options. Now, the biggest problem is that money is always a big issue. I mean, we can't hire a full-time developer for Soylent News, so our mobile layout is kind of garbage, and when I say garbage, I mean it doesn't exist. But just because this is the narrative that's being pushed, that you have to be dependent on Zoom, you have to be dependent on Keybase, it's not true. People will create alternatives, and they get better over time. So that's my message of optimism, of people who think that it's all crap, it's never going to get better. Is that there are times, there are examples. The human spirit is a really amazing thing when it gets down to it. And I'm sorry if I've gone a little preachy here, but
No, have you seen our Twitter?
I'm just waiting for the no, I'm not going to jinx it by finishing that particular sentence. So, ProtonMail.
I do want to inject in, though, just to quickly bounce off what you said. Two things about privacy. One, privacy is about choice. And one of the reasons why we've been putting out these streams and social messaging and tweeting is because the big thing that they'll do is, major corporations and governments and terrible people will try to shut down apps or do legal lawsuits. But the most important thing that they will do is convince you that A, you have no alternatives, and B, that those alternatives don't exist. There's literally a website, I think it's called Alternative 2, that I'll look up later, that you can literally type in any sort of app that you're currently using, and it'll find corporate and open source, all the different alternatives you are. Computers are about choice, and thus privacy is also about choice and options. So that's a big thing there. And two is that kind of also what the LGBT community says, which is fitting because this is Pride Month. The reason why we have so much choice and options is because in order for things to get better, we have to make it better. And that's a balance between people building this alternative stuff, but as important, if not even more, is to share the fact that people are building it, because that's how new engineers get on board to make it better. That's how people in the media, both professional media and just average people that just have people with eyeballs on them, will get people to know that those alternatives exist. And especially when they sleep on a banana peel, like Twitter has done with Mastodon and Facebook has been doing forever, that's when we start seeing big shifts. I literally remember, for example, having a MySpace profile years ago, as well as a Friendster, and using AIM and look at what happened to all
So
of those projects over
no,
time.
hold on.
So
MySpace is still around, amazingly.
it is, but not in the way it was, and it wasn't the domineering Zuckerberg level that Zuckerberg is right now.
Yeah, you know, it's a bad sign that I get nostalgic for MySpace and all the tacky CSS.
I will say about it, yeah, is that you could customize it and annoy people with all of your crappy music. But anyhow, I think we've delved around too much. Let's
Yeah,
talk
I
about
think we have to.
mail usage.
Yeah, so let's go with ProtonMail.
Mhm.
So
I use
ProtonMail, as again, for most users, I recommend using this as an alternative to your main account than your main account. But it can work as both. So I need to, so you know, a password generator is great, both great on the basis of creating passwords and creating throwaway accounts. Because I do,
uh,
if I actually had PWGen installed.
if I can make comments as you do this, so
Go
I've
for
been
it.
a long time ProtonMail user, and I've also been using their VPN service for a bit. While you do stuff, a couple of things about ProtonMail. One, I like that not only do they have proper two-factor authentication, but which I recommend is what they essentially do is have you do two passwords. There's one that accesses your account and one that actually decrypts or basically lets you access the mail. So they have to go through two passwords instead of one. Another great reason why ProtonMail is an alternative, and that's actually the reason why I initially used it, is that ProtonMail, there's other mail services out there like Neo Mailbox and stuff like that, but a lot of them have the open source GUI problem in which it's all stuck in like 1996 design. And ProtonMail's whole thing is doing this type of security as best as they can while still maintaining that Google usability. So I will say for ProtonMail, if you have been using Gmail, you're going to really find it a natural fit and upgrade to almost the point of it not being noticeable when you go into ProtonMail. They have a very similar GUI layout, and everything is sort of there in plain sight. And just like Gmail, they have apps for iOS and Android for this that work pretty much exactly like the way the apps for Gmail does on your phone. And there's many other positive things, but I just wanted to put those there in the beginning.
Yeah, no, I really have a lot of good things to say with ProtonMail. ProtonMail has in fact been sued on several occasions and have stood up for their user rights.
They're also I think they're located in the Netherlands or Sweden. They're located
Netherlands.
in a very privacy first country.
Yeah, they have. I believe they have been legally forced to hand over some data, but they fought for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of the big things I love about ProtonMail, and it's the same thing. I don't know if we're going to get into VPNs later of why or why not you should use it, and if you use them, what you can use. But it's something I also recommend with VPNs and most privacy stuff that, yes, you want to look for something that is going to do like encryption, writes, no logs and stuff. But the biggest thing, and to me what makes both ProtonMail and Proton VPN, and again, we're not sponsored by these, especially I am, but this is something I've used. I've used ProtonMail for like over 4 years now, and the VPN for like a year and a half, is that look for if a company has an exit plan. Like one of our hacker mottos is that every single thing can be hacked. So instead of, which a lot of companies do, like NordVPN, where they talk about how great their security is, but then when they're breached, they just sort of bend over and let everything happen. ProtonMail actually has articles of like, okay, if we get hacked, this is how we're going to operate and try to save our users. If the government tries to, if a country's government tries to siege our servers, this is our out plan. So that's one of the main things I like about ProtonMail and VPN is that they let you know that when the poo hits the fan, what they're going to do about it, and they very much have stuck to that. So that to me is a big thing when you're looking for privacy and security stuff. Everything will eventually get hacked. Do they have exits? That lets you know they're very much privacy focused and that they're a mature company.
Yes. So for those who are watching the video as Side Pocket was talking, you also saw that I got. Holy cow! It is raining here. I apologize. I can't do anything about the background noise. I have a metal air conditioner and it gets loud. So as you can see, ProtonMail, if you've used Gmail, this should pretty much look familiar. So the one thing with ProtonMail is that out of the box, it will not integrate with most mail clients. We're going to get it to
Right.
this. But they do
I
offer
think they offer some of that in a paid tier, but the free tier, no. But they do give you a lot in the free tier.
they have the sync app because there is the biggest problem with Proton Mail is it's a pain to sign your emails. We're going to get into this.
Yes.
So if you use Proton Mail, you're also going to want the corresponding app, iOS, Android versions available. The wow, that was my brain just going.
Trust me, that's been us for the past couple of days due to the combination of COVID and 1984 that's going on.
Yeah. So the easiest way to use let's talk about email here for a little bit. So
Yep.
at the beginning of the stream, I tried to show how email is insecure and you shouldn't use it. That is pretty much the truth. I worked in whistleblowing, and if you want to know a really sad fact is how many sensitive leaks were done by email before we got global leaks and secure drop.
If I remember correctly, there's a website called Have I Been Pwned where you can enter your email and check for those type of leaks.
Yes. Oh, and that's also another reason why I recommend LastPass. LastPass will look at all your sign-in accounts, and if they end up on Have You Been Pwned, they will immediately alert you. This has saved me. Yeah, because it tells me which passwords I have to change. Let's see here. Have I been pwned? Who's faster, me or Side Pocket? Yes.
Sorry?
Oh, I thought you were getting the link because I heard you typing.
Oh, no. I was just asking if people wanted to have questions.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is, HACK-ALT-NCOMMANDER is not scripted. All the fails are real. All the pain and suffering is real. These are all true.
One, F it, we do it live.
You do realize we haven't so much tempted the demo gods. We have stolen their significant other.
Defcon one, we're hackers, so technology hates us.
We're not so much tempting fate as kicking fate's dog and stealing their partner. You do realize that we're going.
John Wick. Yep.
Yeah. Email. One of these days, I might actually finish the sentence.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, see, I have only myself to blame because I have something most people in life really wish. I have a mute button for Side Pocket.
Yeah, pretty much. Anyhow, let's get back to this.
So, the biggest problem is that if you send ProtonMail, so ProtonMail does server-side encryption. It also encrypts all the data within the application with the two sets of keys that Side Pocket talked about. The problem is that not everyone uses ProtonMail. So if I send a mail to Gmail, that email could be intercepted in flight via what are known as stripped TLS attacks, or Google could just hand it over. Google is known to cooperate with law enforcement, and don't be evil hasn't been a thing with them for a long time, sadly. So there are two ways you can get around this. In every part of every email, and let me see if I go here to my spam folder, because strangely enough my own email address ended up in the spam folder. Email consists of two parts. They have oh wow, that actually worked.
Well, something actually worked on your show. I'm impressed.
Yeah, no freaking kidding. So if we look at the this is what the encrypted email. I'm not sure how well this is showing up on camera. Let me make this bigger.
It looks great.
Yeah. Is the headers of every email address are unencrypted, and there's a lot of information here. So by looking at this, I caused Jack to have a heart attack because Jack sent me an email, and then I was able to derive so much information from his email headers. He was not a happy camper. Obviously, I'm not going to show that because I'm not going to dox Jack on camera.
No, that Jack doxing, gang dox is his job.
Oh, you had to go there. You live with him. At least I don't, so he can't beat me up. He can't introduce me to the clue by 4. But these headers are transmitted in clear text. Email as a protocol, SMTP as a protocol is, I want to say it's 40 years old. It was designed in an era when our computers were lucky to have a megahertz of processing power, and encryption was not a thing. Encryption was not a thing on the internet until Netscape wanted to send credit cards, and MasterCard and Visa shot a brick about this.
The internet at its base level was designed to route information as fast and then secondary efficient as possible. Encryption didn't enter the equation, which is why any encryption on the internet is a layer added to the base internet, not built into the internet core itself.
And as an added insult to injury, IPv6 was supposed to have mandated IPsec encryption on it. There was significant lobbying against that, which at the time I thought was unusual, but I have to think of the hand. We didn't know about Bull Run and the other NSA programs at the time, but now I'm suspecting there's something a lot more sinister was at hand there.
And to note, IPv6 has been around for so long, gestating, that I had to learn it on my second year of Cisco training, which my high school was privileged enough to have Cisco routing training certification as a high school level for all 4 semesters in my sophomore year. And to dox myself, I graduated in 2005.
Yeah. Well, the problem, so people like to shit on Cisco and especially WebEx, but I will admit that their training material is remarkably good, and it doesn't
No,
just.
it is.
I was like, I don't like, I feel this is like praising Oracle. I don't feel right doing it.
My teacher was a whip cracker who was the school teacher, but yeah, no, their resources. I always tell people when they want to learn routing stuff, there's like a tiny book you can get for like $10 that just has like all the router commands for Cisco routers, and you get that, and it's a really great resource. Continue on. I'm going to be cooking, so I'll be in and out. I'll be right
So
back.
I actually just realized the way I should demonstrate this is I'm going to send an email back to myself from my ProtonMail, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy paste in the headers so you can see what exactly is sent as metadata and how you can protect yourself with that. So let me see if my mail. I've been having some issues with my main mail account, so hopefully this will work on the first try. Okay, there we go. So let me grab the headers and here we go. Come on. Okay, bear with me. So this is what, so my main email account lives on Gmail. It's an very old email address, but this is everything that's sent in clear text over the internet. And then the actual email message that you guys saw me sent is sent here base 64 encoded. So you can see that there's a lot of information. You can see each and every mail server your email passed through. So in this case, it passed through ProtonMail. It passed through my own mail server, which is Pathfinder, and then it continued on to Gmail, where this ultimately ended up. Because as I said, I am still working on my Google exit strategy. It's not easy. So this meta information is what things like Keyscore and other NSA surveillance and government technologies get, because they don't even need to see the message. This will let you do what's called contact tracing, which actually I don't need to explain that anymore. Thank you, COVID. But this is basically how that works. And then depending on what mail client you're using, you can leak a lot more information. For example, in the Jack example, I not only managed to get his email client, I got his version of Arch he was running, I got his internal IP address, I got his gateway IP address, I got his ISP's public address. I think you see where I'm going with this. And this is sent in clear text right over all of it. And then if we ran this part through what's called a base 64 decoder, because there's no actual encryption here, I can... Oh. Mouse, work with me, mouse. I command you to work with me. Base 64 decode. I should really change the default browser, but I don't actually see here. Decode. And
Real
there
quick,
you go.
it's funny that you mentioned about not changing the default, because as a really awesome video that you can find on YouTube about Bing talked about, there's a lot of race to the bottom in terms of technological hierarchy for control that companies do. And one big thing that a lot of companies rely on is the idea that nobody changes defaults because they either sometimes don't care, but mainly because they don't know they can change it, which is one of the reasons why Chrome is so popular, is because when you get a lot of Chrome and Edge, because when you get a Microsoft Windows machine, all of them come with Edge, and so people just use that and don't bother. And when you get an Android phone, or a Chromebook, they all come with the Chrome browser, so no one bothers to change that. So they kind of prey on the fact that you're not going to change your default.
Yeah, so actually, you just brought me of another reason why thou shalt not use Chrome. And specifically, it's what's called OCSP. So when you've got the little lock here, and God knows it, I've actually done a talk on this on for 201, and I'm pretty sure I went on one hell of a rant about this, on how I am well known for Old Man Yells at Cloud, but when...
No. You're known for Yell at Cloud. We already have our old man. He's currently stuck in the fail factory right now, and we worry about him a lot.
Yeah. Now, so every website that is encrypted on the internet, as well as mail servers, use what's called TLS encryption, which uses a set of certificates. Now, the problem with TLS certificates is they can be misissued. This is actually a very legitimate problem, because every certificate comes from what's called a root certificate. And let's see if I can remember where it is. So if you look inside Firefox... Oh, wow, that is UI fail. That is UI fail. I don't want it highlighted. Okay, but there's a lot of companies in here that can issue root certificates. Google, if they so chose, could cause any website on the internet to have a valid security. Now, these companies are audited, and there is what's called certificate transparency, so this is a lot less of a fear than it used to be, but it's still valid for a targeted attack. Now, I wonder if it's still in here. The Hong Kong Post Office used to have their root certificate in here.
Yep.
I don't know if it's still in here. I'm not seeing it. But we also, and in one of the moments of Mozilla, what are you doing? They also had the Chinese National Network Information Certificate in here, which is used to power the Great Firewall. Do I really need to explain this problem more in depth? So this is the problem with TLS. The fact of the matter is that certificates suck. And the fact of the matter is that revocations are necessary because A, people that issue certificates are human, B, mistakes happen. There are two ways to do this. This is called certificate revocation lists and online control status protocol. Chrome decided not to use either of these, and they get a little download file from Google. So the entire revocation certificate infrastructure is ignored with Chrome, unless you're in one of those small percent of websites that Google cares about, that they'll notice that you revoked a certificate. Do not use Chrome if you care about your security or your privacy. It is a joke. I don't want...
As we said on our main broadcast stream, whether you use Chrome or Chromium, Google has a bunch of code hard-baked core into the Chrome and Chromium platform, meaning no matter how much, except for, I guess, ungoogled Chrome, you try to attempt to mitigate by adding extensions or trying to edit stuff, there is still a base level of tracking that will always ping back to Google, which is why we recommend to not use anything based on Chromium or the render engine that Chrome uses if you have to.
Brave is an exception because they have thoroughly scrubbed that code base.
Right. We have our own caution about Brave, but for someone who, again, you just drop that and you don't have to config everything, Brave is something you can use.
Yes, I do want to make a note here that Firefox does have some phone home features. It's nowhere near as
Right.
assiduous as Google, and Mozilla Foundation is a not-for-profit organization, and for the most part, they're an organization that you can trust. Trust is a very interesting topic, especially when we talk about InfoSec. But the fact of the matter is, Mozilla tends to look out for the internet end user. Google is trying to raise more ad revenue. Which of these is going to have your interests more at heart?
Mhm.
So, anyway, so I've shown you how email sucks. The fact of the matter is, I really don't want to put it that way, Nexus 6, as the lesser of two evils, but the fact of the matter is that modern web standards is such an ungodly amount of bloat. We are lucky to have two web browsing engines, because as of right now, Microsoft tapped out, Trident was dead, Chakra is dead, um, the one Opera user is now, which is SidePocket, now went from Presto to WebKit. So you have it's a two-horse race. If Mozilla
Yeah.
tops, if Mozilla taps out, that means Google has unrestricted control of major web browsers.
And a lot of browsers under different names all use Google's rendering engine, which means they usually use some form of Google's Chrome or Chromium to a degree in their browser. I do want to mention here that the only reason why I use Opera GX on Windows has to do when I do these streams, because this is so stupid. It's a gaming browser, but it has a really good feature in it where I can actually limit the network traffic it picks up, the RAM, the CPU, and if I had one, the GPU. So that allows me to still surf the web and check stuff while putting it in a very low power state so it doesn't interrupt the stream. Now, I don't use it as my primary browser. It's literally just for when I do streaming. So take a note of that. That's how little I trust of Opera.
Yeah, so like I said, it is pick your poison, but this is the society we live in. Things. I think it's I don't want to get super preachy here, although I think this stream is kind of already, that ship may have already sailed. But when things get bad enough, new alternatives come together. We are literally watching this happen in the United States right now. So when we talk about email encryption, and I'm going to drop some Wikipedia pages because I want to talk about this on a high level before I go into practical examples. There are two standards here. There is GNU.
I hate to interrupt you on this, but can I mention two more quick things about ProtonMail? They'll only take like 30 seconds max.
Go for it. I'll drop the links while you do that.
Two more positives about ProtonMail. You do have to go through an exchange, if I remember correctly, but for those who are worried about if you want to do paid services for ProtonMail to get like more storage and stuff and features, and you're worried about using your credit card directly on the internet, they do accept Bitcoin. So if you do want to exchange through Bitcoin, if you're that paranoid or you have Bitcoin, you can use it to pay for the paid versions of ProtonMail. And another thing about ProtonMail, which I can link to later, is that they're the only web provider that I can think of right now that has a dedicated onion to it, so you can actually your ProtonMail through the Tor network and pipe the traffic through your access to your ProtonMail over the Tor network by going through a Tor browser. So that's just two more things I want to throw out there.
Yes. Yeah, and they and Nexus 6 brings up a very good the TED Talk on the topic. So the fact of the matter is, ProtonMail is great if you're talking to other ProtonMail users, but if you need to talk with other users, because let's be honest, if we're not using Facebook Messenger, most of the time we're using email. I mean, and now Facebook thankfully is being rather ravaged by their current response on current events. So
or mainly Zuckerberg's response, because the rest of the company hates him right now.
Yeah, pretty much. I can't disagree with that. So there are two ways to encrypt your email and actually get to keep the contents. You can't do anything about the email headers problem. As long as you're using basic email, this is always going to be a thing. It's unavoidable. but when you can encrypt your content. Now, what most people will say, and I am an exception to this rule, is you should use GNU PG or GPG. And what GPG does is it forms what's called a web of trust. So basically, the idea is everyone has an encryption key and a signing key, and you sign everyone's other key so you know how who they are. I don't think it works, and I don't think it's a good product. I am in a minority about this because the problem with GNU PG is you're basically trusting other people to validate your keys, or you have to meet everyone face to face to exchange key information. I have used GPG extensively for over a decade. I have never been able to build what's called an indirect trust. And my old key was well signed. I had several hundred signatures on it. The other problem is that GPG has a very high learning curve. Now, there is what's called a browser extension called FlowCrypt, and this actually works fairly well. That lets you use GNU PG with Gmail, and it will, with some tweaking, also work with ProtonMail, or it should work with ProtonMail. I haven't actually tried it.
One that I personally used to throw out there that's common, that I personally use and found no problems with if you're going to use GPG, is as an extension for your browser, is Mailvelope.
Oh, yes, that is, in fact, a fairly good one. Sorry, FlowCrypt, I think that's the one I was thinking of. FlowCrypt will work with Gmail. It's one of the few that do.
Right.
The problem with GNU PG is I find it's very much false sense of security. It also, no major mail client supports it out of the box. ProtonMail has extensions for it, but they're one of the very few. Thunderbird is the only one that has any, what I can call decent support in the form of Enigma Mail. Jack, Evolution will blow up regularly with it. I have tried that. I've seen it fail to decrypt emails. I've seen it fail to show the lock. No, I can't recommend Evolution as a GNU PG client. I haven't used.
I will also say, though, that if you're going to use GPG, except for iOS, which has paid walls for them, there's pretty much a client for every single operating system, browser, and almost every single mail client out there. But the flaws you're pointing out are very much valid.
Yes. So if you're going to go down the encrypted email rabbit hole, which I have trouble recommending because of the inherent problems of email, what I actually recommend is SMIME, which is TLS certificate based. It's essentially that certificate hierarchy, but built in the sense of offline data. So instead of having the web of trust, your email address is validated by a certificate authority. Now, there's a long argument to be said about certificate authorities and whether they're good or not. My general opinion is they're crap, but they're better than the alternative. So, and every major email client, including Outlook, and I should actually go with especially Outlook, supports SMIME. So the way you get it, I don't know if I can show this very easily on camera. I had originally planned to go into this topic a lot more in depth, but the more I think about it, the more I think I want to make this awareness. Can I get a show of support in chat if you really want me to dig into this, or if you want me to cover other topics?
I want to mention that it was sent through us through Twitch messaging, but one of our followers just double checked, and Cisco has their networking basic specialization on Coursera, which I guess is like a learning platform for free. So he just wants to put that out there. I also want to quickly mention, just because we don't have alerts, we did get a bunch of follows, so I want to just quickly read them. Thank you, Damabook. I love these creative names. Brian Demodulated, RD Traub, and Shoka and _zipped for following us. Spread us around because we're trying to educate the public, especially in these trying times, and keep up the good work, such as what NCOMMANDER is doing.
Yep. It's I'm not sure how much more content I have to cover. I basically got up this morning and decided I'm going to do X, and then I felt like garbage, and then I slept until 6 p.m. So it's like, oh god, I gotta install Windows. Oh god, I gotta have everything ready. It's like, oh god, oh god, oh god.
I didn't go to sleep until 9 a.m. this morning, and I woke up, I think, at like slightly before 2 p.m. So like, I really don't know I'm like Robin Williams, and I don't know what year it is.
You know, as far as like the end of the world, what haven't we gone with 2020 disaster bingo?
I don't know. I really just hope that like the police don't replace the rubber bullets with murder hornets that they can shoot out, because Ebola's coming back, and it's just, this is like, I think what happened with Game of Thrones is all the good Game of Thrones writers went from Game of Thrones, and instead they're writing our season finale instead of the shows. So that's why it's like that. I will be shortly right back because I am looking right now.
Why did you go there, Side Pocket? Why? Okay. I feel like I need to drop a downfall meme in the chat for that. Anyway. Wow, I'm sorry. Side Pocket completely crashed my brain. I don't know what house call is. Let me take a look at it, and I'll give you. Let's see here. Is this the Tread Micro? Okay, you know what? I probably should address this. I really hate to say this, but for antivirus, anti-malware on Windows, as a day-to-day solution, I have trouble recommending anything but the built-in Windows Defender. And the reason for this is that AV companies have a fairly scummy history attached to them. There's a lot of people here that are going to say McAfee or Norton and remember all the wonderful things here. And
yeah, you need to get rid of antivirus by doing sniffing cocaine Bitcoin.
Pretty much. And I when it really comes down to it, Microsoft really have managed to raise the standard with Defender to the point that unless you're normal users, have Defender enabled and use it and pay attention to it, because it will generally do the right thing and protect you. Now, that's not to say Microsoft gets it all right. I actually had a fairly long rant or tirade on Hacker News about Smart Screen, but in this regard, it will do. You could do a lot worse than Defender. And while I know in hacker communities it's passé to take a shit on Microsoft, I do recognize that they have been making very good strides on their information security. I don't like their telemetry, but the fact of the matter is that in a lot of places they have in fact been doing better. So, you have to take the good with the bad in this. If you try and get a perfect solution, you'll just end up going mad. Trust me, I speak from experience. Scan for all devices connected to your Wi-Fi for open ports. So, let's be very honest. Do you really want to be giving a corporation that ability? Believe it or not, I have developed a product like this. In fact, I developed something that was open source. It was done by a company called Secured by Them. It's called the Network Data Recorder, and it did exactly what you're just describing. So the problem is that we are literally in an era where eBay is port scanning not only you, they are taking advantage of WebRTC to port scan your internal network. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a problem with this, because eBay and most others should, fine, if you want to port scan my external IP, so be it. But now you are using my web browser as a security vector to attack the inside of my network because of the way. Okay, hold on. Let me backtrack here. So, for those who don't know, WebRTC is a mechanism of doing face-to-face chat in a web browser. It's actually how me and SidePocket are talking over Discord. That's all WebRTC. It's also how Mixer's FTL works in the last mile. The problem with WebRTC is it has a very complex handshaking protocol known as ICE, inter internet connectivity enablement, because what it needs on both because WebRTC is built on top of SLIP. SLIP needs to be able to open ports in both directions. It's a design quagmire. But the problem is that the ICE handshake can also be used to port scan within a network. And eBay is using this to scan within your network to see what devices you have connected to your computer. I'm not kidding when I say modern web browsers are a freaking pile of crud. And even it's not just WebRTC. You can now just do this with JavaScript alone. It's why Tor Browser has no script to block this. uBlock Origin and Privacy Badger will also block. As far as I know, will block this. The fact of the matter is that Google is one of the big. I can actually explain this Nexus 6 because I run a Discord server and I don't run an IRC. So, story time here, folks. Soylent News runs its own IRC server. The fact of the matter is that for me to have the same functionality I have with Discord, I need an IRC bouncer. That bouncer needs to be connected to each individual IRC server. It usually needs to set a large amount of configuration on top of that. I know that ZNC is a thing and has a web interface, but your mileage may vary. And I still can't do things like share images. And for users that don't use bouncers, they can't back scroll and see previous content. I can't pin a post. The fact of the matter is that using Discord or even Slack is a better experience than using IRC. I don't like, and after using Discord extensively, going back to HexChat or any other IRC client feels like going a step in the wrong direction towards usability. Now, IRC has the advantage it is an open protocol. Anyone can implement an IRCD, anyone can implement their own version of it. There's also Riot and there's Mastodon that are trying to be the decentralized Discord. Yeah, it's entirely quality of life. And the fact of the matter is that open standards are great for the internet. Open standards evolve at the speed of molasses. Do you know how many years it took for us to get properly standardized encryption for SMTP? And even it took over like 5 to 6 years of drafting for that to happen. So this is why you see a lot of implementations in proprietary platforms like Discord and Slack. Slack, when it came out, made IRC look like a joke, and its main competition at the time was mostly Microsoft Teams, if I remember correctly. Or,
Yep.
Yeah, no, it was Teams, which was even worse, if you can believe it. So now you had something that could do integrated file sharing, media sharing, kept all the messages in one place. It's really hard to see why you wouldn't switch. And Canonical internally, I don't know if this is still true, had an internal IRC server. And when I switched from working at Canonical's to Mixer, which used Slack at the time, it was such a light and day difference, it wasn't even funny. And Slack was kind of garbage compared to what Discord gives you. Hold on. Team Beverage has come.
I just want to add one more link in the chat here.
Side pocket, I actually need to step AFK, so just cover for me.
Okay. Coke break.
No, you can talk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, I'm literally stepping away from my keyboard.
I thought you meant something else. That as NCOMMANDER was showing before, Wireshark of being tracked. If you're using Firefox, I don't think this works in Tor, but Firefox, Mozilla used to make a thing called Lightbeam, and there's a hacker user that still keeps the project going. if you're just curious about your relationships with like third-party trackers and having a visualization of how it looks on the web when you visit sites and what tracks you, you can add that add-on briefly, and it'll give you a GUI of how your web traffic kind of looks right in the browser. That's all. Oh, okay. Oh, he needs to take the breaks. That's all right. And Commander's not alive. Um, oh, cool. Okay, so this put me on the spot. I guess I have to generate some time here. Um, let's see. What else can I talk about here? Because I'm more like kind of supplementing all the stuff that he's doing here. But let's see here. I guess what I can kind of go into is talking about a bit about. I guess. How about this, chat? Do you want us to talk about more privacy oriented operating systems, which is a step above controlling your own hardware, or I mean, a step after controlling your own hardware, or do you want to talk about VPNs, the myths and unscrupulity of using one, and that if you have to use one, what would be your best bets of using one? Let us know in chat right now. As I kind of look over some things here, I'm going to check to see if anyone's
I'm back.
following us right now.
I'm back,
we had
and
a couple. We had two new. We have follow. Witoli is now following us, so thank you for that. Commander, do you have more to say, or because I proposed 2 topics in chat, but if you have more stuff to keep going.
What were the? I heard VPNs. I didn't hear the first one.
I'm sorry.
I heard VPNs. What was the first one?
Oh, I asked of like more secure-oriented operating systems, or talking about VPNs, like sort of the myths and misconceptions about using a VPN, and that if you have to use a VPN, like what would be like the best choice for VPN?
I can talk about VPNs. There's going to be no demonstrations with that, so
Right.
I don't particularly have a very high opinion of VPNs, and the honest fact of the matter is that what VPNs give you is a false sense of security.
Agreed.
So, if people want to hear me talk and lecture about VPNs, that's fine. Otherwise, I have a Tails ISO, and we can fire it up to show you what a secure environment is like.
Right. Like, put it my way. On my phone, and I only use one of these on the desktop for certain situations because we'd rather recommend you go through Tor with the Tor browser. The only 3 VPNs that I can think of are Proton's own. Proton also has a VPN service called Proton VPN. Rise Up, which offers a lot of different like hacktivist tools as a VPN, and Calyx Institute has their own VPN called Calyx VPN. All of them are free. And Proton VPN is kind of similar to ProtonMail, where it's the same company. They have a lot of the same like exit plans, being able to how you pay for it, what you get with the free features, stuff like that. But yeah, there is a huge misconception about VPNs, and especially what's poisoned it. It's like most things really, where one of the reasons why we have to explain people about privacy stuff is in particular after Zuckerberg got pulled into U.S. court. Every company now advertises what they do is secure and encryption. Even like big giant terrible companies like Google and Microsoft and Apple and all sorts of orgs that are known to sell and mine your data advertise themselves as, yeah, we do end-to-end encryption and we respect your privacy, when they actually don't. So it's turned the word privacy almost into a snake oil word, where that's why us and places like privacytools.io and EFF have to do education on it.
Well,
it goes also the same problem that VPNs have, is that so many VPNs advertise themselves as a silver bullet that, you just have to run a VPN and you're like 100% pure Fort Knox. You can go out and like download like CP or drugs over the internet or something with just our VPN. Most of them are, except for those 3 that I listed, and there's still other problems with VPNs in general. Most of them are snake oil, and so that's one of the major issues with them. That's all I have to say, really.
I actually have a fairly longer rant. Unless there are 2 cases where a VPN is via 3 cases, I will say, is if you're routing around censorship, a VPN will help. When I used to live in China, ironically, I was assigned for China by my work, and my work's email was blocked by the Great Firewall. Irony meter goes off, and I had to use a VPN. VPNs are also very good for connecting to corporate infrastructure or personal infrastructure, especially if you need to route one or two layer two protocol traffic. If you know what that is, you are fine. And then option three is if you're trying to get around geo restriction blocking. VPNs don't give you any privacy and they don't make you harder to track on the internet, because if you use a VPN and then just use a normal web browser, Google will or any other normal tracker and will be able to just see that you're using a VPN and you're the same user. You have gained no additional security. It's entirely a false idea that a VPN gives you security. VPNs were never designed to, yes, what Jack, management interfaces for servers. VPNs were never designed to give security. The very first VPN protocol, I actually think it came from Microsoft, was L2TP. It wasn't even encrypted. It was just designed to do point-to-point routing over the internet to connect to disjointed networks. Then we got IPsec on top of that, and then we had the modern evolution of what VPNs are. Now, on top of, that's basically what it boils down to. The security you get from using a VPN, the best way you could use a VPN is in conjunction to using Tor, because then it's less obvious where the Tor, because you can still track that Tor is in use, even if you can't see the data if you use it from your own IP. But 9 times out of 10, if you're using a VPN, you're not getting anything out of it. You've bought snake oil. Even when I travel abroad, and I've traveled extensively, I only ever broke out a VPN because of regional blocking, and that was it. So, because when you get down to it, you know, we're going for hand puppets with NCommander. We're getting the props out. So
I do want to butt in and say the only time I normally use VPNs is when in the United States. I haven't gone down abroad for this, but in the United States, there have been times where I have tried to connect to a public Wi-Fi, and when I try to use Tor, basically because of the way that Wi-Fi router is, it just either Tor gets confused by it, or it will literally take like 20 minutes to load a simple website. And again, similar with Tor, whether I'm on a VPN just for that instance, or if I'm on Tor, you don't want to be doing anything that is obviously like illegal or like super illegal, or an issue such as ordering drugs or trying to get a mail order bride or something. Like, this is not what we're saying this for. I will also mention real quick about VPNs. You talked about getting around geo-censorship, because when most people think of that, they think of, if you're in like China or North Korea, which is weird because they don't really have signal poles like that or whatever. Recently, for our hi people on DLive, for our DLive stream, I had to try to set up. You have to set up 2 accounts for that, and one of the accounts, for some reason, I guess it wasn't offering service for America, so I literally had to turn on Proton VPN, pretend I was from Norway, and because I read as a European, it let me do the rest of the registration. So that's like when he talks about use case for that. It's not just, I'm in China and like the great firewall's on me. There are minor use cases for that. But everything NCommander's saying here is including the history of it, is very much true of VPNs, and I'll shut up now.
Yeah. So I have props here. I have an Outlook 97 CD. I have a DOS floppy. I have a Borland C compiler disk, and I have a copy of DeskView that we're going to show the problems with VPNs with. So let's go for NCommander Puppet Show here. But hold on, we've got some questions in chat before we go for the NCommander Puppet Show. So IDE Tux Teal, we talked about Keybase earlier. Right now, it's slightly wait and see because Keybase itself has not directly addressed that Zoom has decided that it's not doing end-to-end encryption. That being said, the situation is evolving very rapidly. Keep an eye on our Twitter, DEFCON201NJ, and we'll keep you apprised as quickly.
You can find all of our social media, keep eye on at defcon201.org. That will list all the other stuff we have besides Twitter, and we constantly update our social media and our news blog about this sort of situation. My social
media is currently on top of the thingamajiggy of our Twitter, unless SidePocket's been tweeting behind my back. You cheater. So the fact of the matter is, Keybase, we're currently in a holding pattern because right now it's still a separate product for Zoom. So if it keeps its end-to-end encryption, okay. I still think what Zoom is doing is really kind of scummy, but I'm not going to throw them under the bus right now. It's not a problem. We've had a lot of people come and go. I've been watching the user graph, and so I don't know how many people just joined, how many people been here the whole time. So feel free to ask questions in chat and go for it. So let's play NCommander prop hour. So we're going to look at NCommander's. How am I going to do this? So
we're looking at his private naughty bits.
There is advantages to having a webcam. So let's imagine that this Microsoft DAWs disk is your ISP. So normally your traffic goes to your ISP like this. I suddenly realized I'm going to need like 3 more hands for this, but okay. So then imagine, and then once your traffic goes to your ISP, it then goes from your ISP to someplace on the internet, represented by this Outlook 97 CD. And yes, this was the first thing I grabbed out of my box. I'm sorry. So that's how basic internet connections work. So now imagine we want to add a VPN to the list. So you're still connected to your ISP like this. So your ISP can still see everything going in flight. Now VPN traffic is encrypted, but your ISP can still see you're connected. So let's our VPN is going to be represented by this Borland C++ floppy disk. This is probably the weirdest analogy I've ever used. But so now your traffic is going from you, represented by my head, to your ISP, to the VPN, to our Outlook 97 disk. So the thing is that most of the data collection that happens from the endpoint. When I talk about endpoints, it's the point where your data is decrypted and joins the general internet. So the only difference between using a VPN and not using a VPN is where that endpoint is. And that's why VPNs are, in fact, effective against geolocation. But if you just use a VPN and make no other changes, all you've done is switch your endpoint, and nothing has actually changed on how you're talking to hosts on the internet. All the same type of data, meta collection, all works the same. So this is why I don't advocate VPNs to normal users. There are valid use cases for them, but 9 times out of 10, they are snake oil. Now, Tor works a little differently, and for Tor, I'm going to need another floppy disk. So with Tor, you still have your first connection to your ISP, but Tor uses a concept called onion routing. So what Tor does is use what's called a 3-hop system, and the message is wrapped in multiple. Unfortunately, I don't actually have an onion because the name is actually really good at describing this, but I don't have one, so I'm sorry. But your message is wrapped multiple times. You first connect to what's called an entrance node on the Tor network, which we are going to represent with this disk view disk. And then disk view, and then this disk will talk. I need another disk. Something has gone wrong here. So the entrance node, represented by disk view, will talk to this copy of MS-DOS1, and then that will talk to our exit node, which again will be our Borland C disk. So these 3 nodes can't see the traffic that's going to the next one. It's basically traffic wrapped against traffic. And then at the exit node, it then talks to our Outlook 97. Now, if we're going to talk about hidden services, I need 3 more disks and another set of hands. But the problem with using Tor without a VPN is you have this basic problem. So here's our ISP again, represented by this Microsoft DOS floppy, and here's your Tor entrance node. It is still visible over the internet that you're using Tor because this link right here is in the clear text. Now, if you used a VPN to connect to our entrance node like this, then you might actually be getting some better security. But most people don't actually do this. What value conjuring that software? I am literally describing VPNs and Tors using Borland C a backup copy of MS-DOS 6.6 that was sent to me by someone on Silent News, a copy of Desk View, and a legitimate copy of DOS 6 with premium tools. Because I needed a prop, and this is what I had handy. And they also represent a great way to save your files. You know, and... So this has been NCommander explaining VPNs with floppy disks. Now that I've lost all our viewers, what was the other question? Oh boy. It's like watching Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Floppy. There is so much wrong with that particular sentence. I don't even know where to begin. But if we want to bring out sad and wrong, I've got sad and wrong.
Wait, so does that make you Dumbledore?
Do.
Oh, jeez.
And it's still sealed in box.
I just realized I didn't know you have a grandfather clock. I have one too.
That grandfather clock I have a history of. It was a wedding gift to my parents. My mom was going to throw it out, and then I convinced her to keep it when she moved to her current apartment. So it's been staying in my room, and I'm hoping at some point to take it to a new apartment. So,
oh no, why is earthquake trending?
So an interesting thing about Twitter is that Twitter actually travels faster than earthquakes. So geologists have actually used Twitter to track the progress of an earthquake through hashtags. Completely unrelated to what we were talking about, but I also let's take a slight levity break because we've been really serious here for about 2 hours, so we're just going to take 5 minutes. I dug up something.
Quick, I just want to say because this just got announced. There's a warning for California for a 5.5 magnitude earthquake.
Okay, so anyone that's in California, please take cover and be safe, because the fact you only have one life. So I want to show what is going to be showing up on a HACK-ALT-NCOMMANDER in the near future, and I'm just waiting for it to load.
Sure. I'll be right back, by the way. Go away. Take it away.
Oh, there it is. Oh, wow, this is like a new type of reCAPTCHA. Okay, so verification is successful. Come on. Where is it? Here it is. I kind of want SidePocket on camera, though, because I want to cause him pain and suffering. But
I will say, if you want to see me
look what I bought, SidePocket,
and see NCommander get his revenge, we might announce something soon about that. But we're going to be focusing on NCommander's torture later on this month.
Yeah, I just want to show you something I bought.
Really quick, someone wrote, Bamboo Jean said, I was wondering if the Tor mobile app is reasonably comparable to the Tor browser.
Oh, yes. I was going to address that. So what can I say about this? So the answer is no. And it's a fairly long and complicated problem. The very short reason is that Google makes it basically impossible to have complete control of the network stack as you can on normal desktop PCs. And as far as I know, Apple is the same way. If you use the application in and of itself, it's not a big problem. But other applications can track what you're doing, and Google does collect statistics so they can see that you're using Onion Browser and other applications on your phone. Another problem is that because of the way the Android operating system sandboxes it, you can't easily run other software over Tor through that instance. There are ways around it. There's Orbit, but without a rooted phone, it really doesn't give you the same level of security and encryption. It is an improvement, and you should use it, but do recognize it's not going to be up to the same standard that the desktop app is. It's why it's still marked as in alpha, and I don't know if they'll ever be able to reach that just because of the underlying stuff with Android and iOS. So I'm hoping that addresses that question as well. Any other... Oh, wow, we have someone from Russia here. Damn.
Oh no, Yandex is tracking us.
Okay, I am really impressed. Any other questions for chat before Side Pocket? What was the other topic you wanted me to talk about?
Well, I just want to add one more thing about Tor real quick that we mentioned on our stream. If you have Tor, because when you get Tor, you're going to get two things on your Android device. You're going to get what's called the Tor Browser, and you're going to get something called the ORBot, and the ORBot is kind of the Tor command routing console. It's what in technical terms is the Toric on your phone, and it controls like how many hops you do. You can configure it. The browser is just the browser, and they work in conjunction. In ORBot, there's a feature on it that is called VPN mode, and when you switch that on, it basically makes ORBot into, like, it gives, Android will give it VPN privileges, and you'll see the little lock and key sign, and basically it will now try to pipe every bit of internet traffic through ORBot through Tor, and its priority is for which there are applications and web browsers like the Tor browser that natively default to Tor, so I will put that in there. Besides, what was it that talk about VPNs? The other thing, do we want to talk about like potentially like, hey, I'm a journalist, or hi, I'm out in the field on a laptop, or I'm at home and I'm worried about being traced back? Are there any sort of one, can I do a live operating system, and two, what sort of operating system lives or not are like reasonably like looking towards your privacy? Is that something we want to cover or briefly or?
I'm sorry, I was actually responding to something in chat. Can you repeat that?
That's fine. I can reiterate. That's perfectly fine. Ooh, South of America, nice.
Yeah, well, we were getting
See, I told you have a fan club.
Well, I posted this on Soylent News because I felt this was public interest, so we're getting a fair bit of the SN community coming here.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Yeah, because...
about your article, by the way, just we've been doing with so much stuff, it's either going to go up tonight or tomorrow because...
Side Pocket, don't worry about it. The world has gone completely crazy.
Yeah, we're going to do... he's been doing text versions of sort of the crazy stuff he's been doing with Windows and retro software. So we do have one, but because of the current situation, we've had to delay things because we're updating other stuff to help activists and protesters and just general people out there being safe. But
you can't say I've been covering current events. It's not going to change. So so what was the actual thing you wanted me to talk about, Side Pocket? Because we've been
not wanted because it's up to you. But the question is that do we want to talk about like this scenario of hi, like I'm either like a journalist out there right now, or I use a laptop in order to go out and help people out there right now, or I'm at home but I'm worried about people like tracing me back, and I just don't want to do a browser. I want to do something with the operating system because I'm stuck on like Windows or Mac. Do we want to talk about live operating systems?
I would say
live or not, what operating systems are kind of more towards or geared more towards for privacy?
Yeah, and if I'm going to, Jack is going to complain about this, but if we're going down this road, I'm going to pull Tails out. I can also demonstrate Ninja OS. But Tails is the standard here, and it's what Global Leaks and most...
I also have some suggestions. We're not going to demo on here just because we can't, but after you're done talking, I will put up more suggestions. So take it away. It's all you.
Yep. So, just as a note, we have reached 100 messages today in Restream chat. So,
yay!
You know...
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you all. No, seriously, people asking questions in chat is really important because otherwise it's usually me just talking to myself. In this case, I have Side Pocket locked up in a closet. Wow, that's I'm sorry. That went somewhere bad.
It's in chat. It's one, we want to make sure we're actually reaching people out there, and two, as NCOMMANDER says, all it is talking to ourselves, and off camera, that's all we do all day is talk to ourselves. So we'd rather actually like interact with the digital people out there.
Yeah, so let me switch my view to full screen. So we're going to talk about actually let me switch back. Let's go to the Tails website before we actually do that. Wrong thing. There we go. So what Tails is, for those of us that lived in the early 2000s, there was this big fad called a live CD. which kind of has gone the way of the dodo, because when was the last time anyone talked about capoxyl?
Yep.
So what Tails is, and is, it is an acronym. I never remember what it stands for. The Amnesic Incognito Live System. Let me drop. I'll drop their Wikipedia and their website, so you guys can. That was not what I wanted to link to. There we go. So the whole point of Tails is you put the disk in. It has basically everything you need to get started. It comes with Tor Browser. It has clients. Then you turn it off and it all disappears. So it's designed to be a very transient system. It's not perfect because modern PCs unfortunately come with built-in backdoors, also known as management engine. But it's about as good as you're going to get without specially dedicated hardware. The problem with Tails and other products like it is you have to reboot your system under a live disk. The easiest way to do this is if you've got a laptop with an optical drive is to burn it and then boot off it. Unfortunately, laptops with optical drives have really become a anchorism at this point. So option B is to write it with a USB stick. If you're on Windows, Win32 Image Writer is the tool I recommend. But let me, you know what? We're going to stick the disk right here in this VM, and we're going to reboot it onto it. So I don't think you can see the UI while I've got this up. So let's stick the Tails disk in. Come on. So if we close this all out, and we go look at... Okay, so we've got this all here. We've got an EFI. We've got a ISO boot. Now, depending on what your computer is running and what firmware it is, a few of these screens is going to look a little bit different. The stream may also glitch out because this is going to change resolutions a bunch of times, and OBS doesn't always handle it well. Okay, Jack, have a good night. See ya. So, and I want to boot from CD-ROM. So when you put Tails in, and I'm going to have to keep adjusting this, it will come up with a menu asking you what you want. Tails, pick a resolution and stay at it, please. Just, okay, thanks, bye. So one thing you'll notice is that it is a bit slower, especially in this case. This is an emulated CD-ROM drive running on a solid state, and you can already see it kind of chugging. I will note that when you run this on real hardware, you will really feel it. So if you want to be a serious Tails user, invest in a high, a relative... Oh, please don't crash, please don't crash, please don't crash. It's running in a screwy resolution. Frig, yeah, I was afraid of this. Guys, hold on, I'm going to have to futz with the resolution here because this is being really problematic. Yeah, it's not only screwed up on Scream, it's actually screwed up for me locally. Like, I'm getting resolution problems. VirtualBox used to have a magic salute that fixed this. Let's see here. Adjust window size. There we go. So when you start Tails up, you get the Welcome to Tails. It asks for your language, keyboard layout, and format. So this is fine. You can also have a few custom settings, but again, the defaults are usually good enough. It will then flicker the screen a lot more, and of course, come on, sometime today. Yeah. See, this is why I don't recommend new users go with Tails, because there are usability issues here, to be very blunt. This is about as good as you can get with a live image, but the fact that you have to use a live image is the usability problem. So the default Tails version is GNOME 3 Classic, I believe. We have Tor Browser, which we've basically been talking about. You can we have KeyPass XC. You have Pigeon for instant messenger. You can install Tails to a hard drive. It loses some of its amnesiac functionality because as it is right now, when I go back to Windows, everything I do under Tails, but it's good to know. And then you can set a persistent volume. And what this is, I can't do this because this is running off a CD, is it creates an encrypted bunker on your USB stick for keeping data. So it is a very secure way of keeping information. Tails is not a good daily driver operating system, though. It's really designed not to keep persistent data. And while it's got the bunker thing, it's not the greatest on a day-to-day basis. This is like for a member of the press who is contacting an informant who wants to be sure that there's no malware on their system. Now, due to things like Management Engine, this is a lot more complicated than it used to be in previous years. To talk about Management Engine is a much more in-depth topic than I really want to go into tonight. I might cover it at a later point. And Team Hydration is calling, so hold on a sec. But
so everybody's coming back, but I just want to shout out again that if you're on a streaming platform, we normally have these set to archive. And if you want to see archives of this or read up of blogs that NCommander has written or just know details about our group and resources, hacker resources you can use, you can go to our website, which is defcon201.org. That's DEFCON 201, like all one word, .org.
yeah, if you want to follow me on Twitter or YouTube where I post videos, have at it. And then let me also drop the, did I just drop the right link in there? Yes, I did. And I just realized I opened that on the wrong tab. So, again, the problem with Tails is it's very good for what it is. You know, it is a completely usable system. And as far as Linux, but the thing is, first you've got a Linux distribution. Most people, even I'm guessing even in chat, only a small number of us actually use Linux as our daily driver. I know Jack does. I know I do. I know SidePocket does. Siricel runs everything, and then a lot of things no one's ever heard of. And, you know, but for those of you in chat, I mean, just show of hands, how many of us actually are running Linux or running something else? So you've already got the learning cliff of this is a completely different UI. You know, and then you get some of these, you know, are not exactly the most easy things. Like this program is calculating hashes of files on your file system. You know, it's described in the documentation, but you know, it's not exactly the most user-friendly thing. So this is why I have a problem with a lot of people, how they advocate privacy and other things, is that I always hear use Tails or something else. But security, you have to be the right sort of user. Now, 2 years ago at Circle of Hope, I gave a topic about this on Global Leaks, on how Global Leaks has to focus more on accessibility than absolutely perfect security, because a platform that is not accessible is not usable. Now, a lot of us are hackers. You want to interject, SidePocket?
Oh, no, I just wanted to, I guess, quickly say, I know I keep saying quickly say, that one of our big tenets at DEFCON 2.1 is accessibility, because, again, if not only is it just frustrating to have something that's not usable by able people, never mind people who are disabled, but that you know, in order for, you know, tech to have its availability, to be available to everyone, for everyone to use it, it needs to be accessible. That's one of my opinions why out of all the darknets, Tor is honestly probably the most successful, is because they went out of their way to, like, all you have to do to access Tor, it's a fork of Firefox. If you use any browser, you know how it works. You just open it and everything runs. And because of that accessibility, that's why the Tor Onion dark web has grown as much as it did. So accessibility is a big thing, and that's why we have people like myself. We all look over accessibility, and Neo, who sadly is not with us.
No,
right now,
hold on. I've got the Neo emulator here.
Yeah, that's all. Continue. and I have a couple things to say about Tails at the end, and I want to offer up some other browser tips. I mean, not browser tips, operating systems.
I highly, highly, highly recommend you watch this talk. It's by our member Neo that he gave at Circle of Hope. It also has one of the greatest talk fails, which is actually right here. I don't know if the audio is working correctly, but he's going to go through his slides in 3, 2. Oh no, I went too far. But
we will never let him unlive this.
Oh, we're never. The fact that we got it on camera. And if you want to see my talk about accessibility and global leaks, let's see here, Circle of Hope. I will sum it up. Actually, I have the slides to that talk. Do people want me to give that talk right now? On the real importance of accessibility,
sure,
especially.
About it. I guess in chat, I'll say really quick that DEF CON 201, we're working on it in terms of making a full website, but we currently have a Onion that is also as a splash page. And one of the cool things about our Onion is sometimes they go down, but we have links to a lot of ClearNet stuff that's also on Tor, as well as some Tor specific things that are good resources such as email clients, paste bins, password managers, operating systems, stuff like that. And we don't have global links directly on there, but we do have the link to 2600's global links, and that's on our landing page. So I just want to put the Onion in the chat. There we go.
Yeah. Soylent News also has an Onion address, although I will admit that it has some historically had some issues. You know, this is...
That was tame.
There's a lot of duct tape and spit holding together the Soylent News infrastructure, and the duct tape to spit ratio has gone up and down over time. I should actually check to see if that link works.
And Commander, real quick, can I share one quick bit of thing that's unrelated that we might have a kind of half chuckle at?
Sure, go for it.
Apparently, one of the official political polling places did a 3-day poll, and it ended a couple hours ago. And apparently, 54% of Americans say that the burning of the Minneapolis precinct was justified.
Yes, I did. In fact, I saw that right before I started the stream.
That's the state we're in now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, here in New York City, there has been. Oh, look, our Onion site works. You know,
Yep.
As a note, if you guys want to see me do a much more technical stream, because this was meant as, you know, to help those that are currently out and about or communicating about this. But if you want to see a technical stream where I set up things like a hidden service, or this is how you make IIS not make security engineers cry, or cry less.
Question, and Commander, on your stream again, we want to do these infrequent privacy streams. Would you want to save that for when we do that particular stream again, or?
What we may end up doing, at least until the world gets its head screwed on straight, I could do multiple HACK-ALT-NCOMMANDERs. As it stands, I am currently not working because the world has gone mad. So I have free and time on my hands. So I'm really going to just I'm going to throw this back to the community on what they want me to cover. For myself personally, this is what I wanted to cover. If there is enough interest in the group to go through the IT side of things, we will probably I would probably hold a Linux and Windows Day, especially with making IIS not suck balls. I'd have to do a fair bit of setup for that, because we would actually do this live in the cloud on Azure. So, hosting a site, I just had a horrible thought. Let's host a site on the Danknet on IIS. There's no way that can go wrong.
We're in that mode, so if anyone wants to do that.
I've got some great laxative.
I'm going to answer that question. All I will say is don't ever stop eating your wicker furniture would probably help. That's what you can do, Coots, on DLive. Just like, also, because there are programs out here, and Jack's been experimenting with this. Stop drinking Soylent. If you've been drinking Soylent for more than 2 weeks, that
Yeah,
will also do that apparently.
Side pocket, you do realize that we have a fair bit of the Soylent news community. Now, I realize we don't. We're a Slashdot knockoff, not the drink product that came later.
Mm.
Happy thoughts. Happy thoughts. I'm in my happy place. My happy place is not currently on fire. Is compute? Yeah, that reminds me of fun interlude moment. BOS had a system call. Is computer on? Can't returns boolean. I really was tempted to hack BOS to make it return false and see what happened. And no, I am not making that shit up. I will actually link to developer documents. So, all right, we've covered email, we've covered web browser, we've covered email on a high level. We've talked about GNU PG and SMIME because I was going to demo that live and I'm thinking about it and I'm thinking like, yeah, no, I can't explain this in a way that is going to make sense to most people. We've gone through VPNs. We've talked about Tor. We've talked about Tails. Um, does the chat have anything, or do we just want to go, or do we just want to have a little bit of a chillax time? Because I mean,
I'll put a few things at the end when I'm done typing, but that's a good question. Chat, what do you want us to talk about or do? Because we're kind of at the end of our run here. We normally go to midnight, but
well,
yeah.
I can cover some more general stuff. I mean, we could set up a Tor Onion site like now. I've gotten I'd have to grab Ubuntu and install it in VM, but we could pretty much do it right now. Because this is like let's see here, do I actually have an Ubuntu ISO? I should have one. I wasn't planning. I do a fair bit of prep for these streams, but I was actually.
Can I add some of my comments now? I just have a quick comment about Tails and then some other.
You go for it. I'm going to
comments
start.
here.
I'm going to start installing Ubuntu.
Okay, so I'll cover that. Mine's is going to be kind of really quick. So one thing about Keybase, sorry, Keybase, Tails, that I've been struggling with, and this is by design, but that Tails has locked down their system so much that you notice that there's all these preloaded applications. There are ways around it, and it's tricky, and it's really tricky to do this on persistence, so a lot of times applications break, but Tails makes it really hard by design to add outside applications into Tails. That is like a whole other thing, to be honest. That's more of an intermediary to, I would honestly say, an advanced hacking thing to do. I've been dabbling in that, and I'll put it this way: when Keybase was viable, one of the things I loved about Keybase, there's a lot of things I love. It's just the business background now is that you can pump Keybase through Tor, and there's no real like messenger that's built into Tails where you can message through that. And I always thought that would be perfect for it. So I tried putting Keybase on there, but because of the way it installs, it's not perfect, so you can't have it persistent, which is a problem because of the way Keybase is set up. So that's one example. So it's really hard to put in new applications, especially if you rely on persistence or basically saving files so that when you go back, your work's still there. That's a big issue with Tails. So just know it's very much a plug-in. Do the work that's there and plug out. You're not really like supposed to be adding software and modifying it because they really lock that down for security reasons. I just want to put some alternatives out there, and we actually on our Onion we do have an alternative link for this. If you're more of an advanced user and you like Fedora, I think he knows where I'm going with this. There's a distribution called Cubes. I will warn that Cubes OS does use a lot, even for Fedora, uses a lot of resources. But what Cubes does is it basically very simple explanation. It VMs everything, and there's also an option to pipe things directly through Tor itself. So basically, it compartmentalizes everything you do. So your web browser does not talk to your password manager, that doesn't talk to your notes and etc. One last other one, and I will do a shout out. OpenBSD and HardenBSD, which is a fork of FreeBSD, are both BSD variants, which is another type of Unix operating splinter basically Linux and BSD are kind of cousins of each other to some degree. For people who want a more base security stuff, and if I can find it here, because it's floating around here somewhere. Hang on one moment. I'm gonna click this. And then there we go. Okay, now this will bring it up. There's another distribution out there that is similar to Tails called it's called Linux Kodachi. It's also a live distribution, so it'll directly boot from the thumbstick, and it has a lot of features that Tails doesn't have. For example, overlaid on the background, it gives you very details about your CPU usage and what's going on with both your network and your hardware. And it also has a built-in cold storage unit. And when you pull out, where if nothing is stored in that cold storage unit, it literally forgets every single thing that you've done. So I'm going to also put the link to there. And for those out there, I also want to note you can't live boot cubes. There used to be a version of that, but that they kind of abandoned that because of the way cubes is set up. So if you want an alternative to Tails, Linux Kodachi is good. There's also Ninja OS, which I don't know if Jack, our co-founder GI Jack, built it. He might talk about that in his Arch Linux episode. I think he can give you the approval. I think he gave you the approval that if you want to talk about or show off Ninja OS, you can. And Commander. And if you want something more permanent, like you want to make what essentially is a burner laptop, then I do recommend Cubes. Although make sure you have a decently powerful machine, and also that you're more familiar with Fedora. I would honestly describe it as more of an a more intermediary Linux experience instead of it very basic. So that's all I wanted to say.
So
Canonical.
So to answer Sane My Ninjas, I worked at Canonical. I've built and spun custom distributions. My honest answer about that is don't. There are so many ways that building your own distribution you can shoot yourself in the foot. It's about the same as rolling your own crypto. Don't. I
I will mention about job situations. I'm supposed to get a phone call this week for this, but I work for the city. That's why I'm kind of very public on a lot of things for Jersey City, and I'm not a cop or like part of the government. I work as like a function in Jersey City that's not policing. So I'm considered an essential worker, and my division treats me really well. And I'm basically unemployed right now, and am kind of screwed over to money, waiting for money to come in. And I did not get my Trump check with free toilet paper with signature yet. So just to put that out there, we're all kind of in the same boat here, unless you are super rich like the CEOs at Zoom or Amazon.
So apparently Amazon is hiring to the point that you don't even need to submit a resume. You just show up and they put you to work. So okay,
Yeah.
so Ubuntu is still installing. And before anyone judges me, it's the CD I had on hand.
It's one of those things too where like that was like, just if I could get a little political here, that was my exact problem with, like, regardless that Trump really ruined New Jersey, which, New Jersey's already a mess, so that's kind of an achievement of itself, and all of his unscrupulous background, as well as the people he associates with and hires with his revolving door of knuckleheads. My main issue with someone like Trump is I hate anyone, regardless of political background, when they want to argue that the United States should be run like a business, particularly a big business. Because, to put example, Amazon truly treats their employees like garbage. You could probably legit make the argument that Amazon is literally the 21st century version of the East India Company, including all the United States backing support for Amazon, the way the British supported the East India Trading Company. They may have not hit the same genocide level, but honestly, give it time, I wouldn't be surprised if they get there. And like when their unions, rightfully so, with backings from other unions and even parts of the United States government protested Amazon, Jeff Bezos, one of the richest, if not the richest man in the world, sick both his security team and the police, which he also buys out when he opens up a plant, on his own employees, both from the corporate level all the way down to janitor. And that's like when you talk about Donald Trump, Jeff Bezos, Bloomberg, other types of corporate people, that's how they think. They're not politicians where we can like protest and do legislator and throw tomatoes and eventually they cower down or compromise. These are spoiled brats that have never been told no, and they work that way. And so the way you've seen, like, oh, excessive force, we need to dominate, we need to shoot at pregnant women, I'm going to look like a big man here, not realizing the more gasoline he throws on, the bigger the fire he makes, is exactly how business is controlled, particularly in the United States. So, like, that's, again, that's why we argue at DEF CON 201 that it doesn't matter. Like, if Obama was doing this type of stuff, or Hillary Clinton, or George W. Bush, we would have had the same reaction. Because literally seeing our government our White House in particular, consolidating policing and military power to use brutal force on its own citizens nationwide, to the point where the CIA recognizes this as like the way they dismantle other countries' governments, and also which preluded this, using any excuse to give FCC full reign with censorship because of the Twitter thing, as well as things like Sesta Fosta Culpa and the Earn It Act. This is literally the hacker nightmare that everyone's talking about in the 90s, and that's why we want more hacker and infosec voices to raise their voice, because right now we're sort of going through this middle age crisis period, where a lot of our Mohawk after the man free Kevin people are now burnt out senior design heads at Google, where they contemplate suicide every night. And I know I've been there before, and I have a lot of people who have been there. And so the only way we're going to continue being hackers and hack the planet and helping out our fellow man is by getting the word out. To solve a problem, you first have to address it, and that's what we're doing right now. And that's why NCOMMANDER, instead of torturing himself with Windows, he's kind of torturing himself right now with the way the world is going. And I have to personally thank him for taking his time out to doing this on stream right now. And that's all I really have to say.
Well, just to add my 2 cents to this, just because of personal health issues, I can't be out there on the streets making my voice heard. What I can do is sit, I want to, I really can, and that is something I don't want to talk about on stream in detail on why I can't. But the fact of the matter is, I can educate people. I can, I can try and make a point. I don't try. I am generally not a political person. For those who are here from the Silent News community, you can probably count on one hand the number of times I have stepped into the political shitstorm. So the fact that I'm doing so now should really say a lot. And so we're still waiting for Ubuntu to install. So I'm kind of tap dancing here because, oh crap, I'm out of content. But that's nothing new on HACK-ALT-NCOMMANDER.
That does sound like Ubuntu, though.
So I worked at Canonical for many years. What you described was legitimately... Do I really want to say this on stream? Oh, fuck it. YOLO. So a lot of why I left Canonical is when I joined the company in 2009. It was my first major job. Mark Shuttleworth had founded Ubuntu specifically to give back to the Linux community. Before he had done Ubuntu, before that, he had formed Thatch, which was then bought by VeriSign and made him a butt ton of money. So over time, though, Ubuntu used to have a very thriving, active community, developer community. What happened was that it became more about making more and more money and not about the people and the hackers. I don't know, if you're involved with Fedora, you probably have run into this issue with Red Hat, because Red Hat was the first to go down this particular rabbit hole, that the needs of corporate overneed the needs of the community, and this is why there are very few community developers with both Ubuntu and Fedora as compared to, say, Debian. SUSE is the exception. Somehow SUSE has managed to not only keep their community development, they have also managed to balance it with their corporate. But that was also Novell, and I'm not completely convinced Novell can manage their way out of a paper bag. So It may have been that it was all happenstance, but I quit Canonical because the simple fact is that the things that they never asked me to do anything illegal, but there was some very uncomfortable grounds that I was less happy about, specifically regarding certain policies, which I unfortunately I can't go into detail about. So I eventually just decided enough was enough, and I tendered my resignation. Now I had that option. I know a lot of people. I have told this story before on IRC. I think this is the first time I have told it on a live stream. Side Pocket has probably heard this story before. If you haven't, then I've screwed up. Side Pocket? Bueller? Bueller? Did we lose him? Huh. Figures one of the few times you actually want him to talk and he's not talking. Anyway. I see the mic thing flashing, Side Pocket. I don't... blink once if you're alive, blink twice if you're not. He actually did. Okay, that was well played.
I see something. I'm on a delay, but I see something.
Yeah, so... Like Side Pocket would say, is Canonical has gotten better from that point, but I'm still not very happy with a lot of the things they've done with Ubuntu. I still use it as a distribution because it's the least bad option, but is that really a ringing endorsement? You know,
no, I use mine as a base just because that's what Carousel installed on it, and I'm going to use it that way until essentially the current laptop I'm going to install cubes and turn it into a burner laptop. And then later this year, I'm hoping that when I get the laptop that I want, I'm probably going to flash that with Monharo, just like my old system, and it will run better.
Yeah. See, I mean, the problem is that corporation, you know, I wouldn't even normally share this story on stream because but the fact of the matter is we're living in a world where people are staying silent a little bit too long. You know, how many years has Facebook been doing shady shit regards to political ads and God knows what's else? And it's not just Facebook. Facebook gets a lot of the flack about that because they are social media. And they are, shall we say, more than most. You know, and I appreciate the irony that we're bitching about Amazon on a platform that Amazon controls. There is a reason that we're using Rebase or Restream.io to stream as many places as we can. Unfortunately, the only place that really doesn't have a major corporate overlord is DLive. But even then, if we were on DLive alone, we wouldn't have most of our viewership. Most, from what I've seen from the statistics, is 75 to 80% of our users watch on Twitch, the rest on YouTube.
Right. We literally do restream just to get like options out there because we're not here to be like, I mean, this probably is going to happen. It's kind of already happened. We're not here to be like super like ninja Logan Paul like type celebrities on Twitch or Facebook gaming or whatever. We're here because we want to get the information out. And even when we meet up in person, and we're going to do parts of that with our upcoming meeting on June 19th, because we normally meet third Friday of the month in Jersey City at this awesome sandwich place called Subculture. We're still going to live stream portions of those physical meetings out from now until, you know, Twitch hates us or something like that. I just want to quickly say that user Sachi9Dav479, that's a decent password. And Stevie_AG just followed us, so thank you for following us.
Thank you indeed for the follows. You guys are awesome. Man, we've got a fair number of followers here.
There is a Logan Paul of InfoSec. He's even worse. He's called John McAfee.
Oh, why did you go there, side pocket?
No one asked the Logan Paul of InfoSec, so we just thought we'd like to let people know.
You know, I just had I had a horrible idea.
Shoot.
So we have Swift on security, right?
Right.
We need McAfee on privacy.
I still, especially that Hope's going to be like a 9-day marathon live stream.
Oh God, I don't want to even think of
the panel more than ever of having like John McAfee, Murdoch, and just like 5 or 6 hackers that are notorious for being crazy people, like drunk and on drugs all the time, and just have them have a panel where we just bring up cue cards of different simple topics.
Can we
like,
get Richard
or strip clubs, and they just ramble on for like hours at a time.
We need Richard Stallman in that room.
The sad part is that he'd probably be one of the ones that would be seen as sane by comparison.
You know, you're not wrong. And I don't know what that is. So anyway, for those who weren't paying attention to the video stream, Ubuntu installed. I installed Nginx and the Tor package, the Tor browser has the Tor daemon and their version of Firefox. We have Nginx living here on localhost. So Nginx, if you don't know, is a web server. So making a Tor hidden service. I've got nothing up my sleeve. I don't even have any sleeves, which is the real magic trick. So Tor
I don't want to know where you're pulling this from. Remember, we're on a public stream.
Yeah!
Are you okay? Talk to me.
I'm okay. So anyway, Tor is... God damn it. Side pocket. The Tor has a configuration file called Tor RC, and on Ubuntu, it's installed in act Tor. So the way you create hidden services is really, really simple. Now, this doesn't always work because of permission issues and because of systemd. But if you go here to this line where it says hidden service directory, and you actually do need to create this folder, and what's called a hidden service port, this will generate an onion, a .onion domain, and then it'll connect port 80 on the onion domain to localhost on the on my VM. So if you've got Tor browser at home, we're about to see the magic trick. So I'm going to run Tor interactively. If I can remember how. Failed to validate rendezvous option. Why did it fail to do that?
I hope you guys aren't hearing me eat over the microphone.
We're hearing you eat over the microphone.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm suddenly, my brain has decided that it's... Let's see here. Tor.
That's what happens when you look at Tor in terminal. Your brain starts turning to mush. I know from experience.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to remember. Oh, that's right. Permissions are too permissive. You need to have... It's just like SSH. So Tor hidden service.
Someone just said systemd for the win on YouTube. I thought Jack went to bed.
Jack has issues with... Wait a minute. Jack has issues with systemd. Doesn't he?
Well, now he does. He's changed his tune.
No, oh yeah, maybe he's okay with it. Maybe I'm thinking of someone else. I have issues with systemd. Okay, so there's my hidden service. The problem with the Tor setting up a hidden service isn't so much actually setting up the hidden service. It's figuring out why Tord won't run. Let's send all messages to stderr, and that'll give me an idea.
Let's look at something up here.
Speaking of systemd, why can it not read that directory? What is going on here? Tor Permission denied. Debian. Oh, hold on. I remember this. Debian does this a little bit weird. It has actually ACL full bits set on it, so it doesn't quite work the way you'd think it would work. You actually have to have the owner as Tor, and then I launched this as Debian Tor. There we go. So Tor stop, because I want to run this from the command line. There we go. And then it's built. It's currently. You know what? Let's get the debug. Wow, that did not do what I wanted it to do. Let's. Resizing the VM does not do what I think it's supposed to do. Okay. So what I had to do there was I had to create the hidden service folder, and I had to just change its owner to Debian Tor. Depending on your Linux distribution, that might be slightly different. And then I just want to turn off debug messages. So now it's bootstrapping the Tor relay. So assuming I did it.
I just want to throw out there real quick that we're not going to go into a system D rant, but
or not.
Earlier, late last night, there's a type of Linux that's, I believe, based off of Debian called Duvuen. That just came out with their newest version called Beowulf, and that, if I remember correctly, is a fork of a type of Linux called Debian, where they strip systemd out of it. So for anyone who does not like systemd and has always wondered if there are Linux distributions that don't have those, that's one that literally just got updated last night.
Yep. So for those who are watching this, you notice that if I go into that folder I created, the hidden service, I've got this onion. And if we switch, if we go full screen, reset. Let's see here. Let's open up Tor Browser.
That was what I imagine the inside of your head looks like.
Okay.
With that layout.
I just realized I don't have extensions. I can't copy and paste. Can I just enable it? Sometimes this works, most of the time it doesn't. No. Okay, fine. What I can do is I can SSH into my own desktop, and I can write a file on write a file with this temp blah.
For layman people, you look like you're doing like real Hollywood hacking right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. I am a little tired. I haven't slept well in several days.
That's fine. Just get as far as you can.
So no, I already have it done. Look,
and then I think
if you
probably call quits soon.
If we there's my Tor hidden onion site, and if I drop that, anyone who can pull up Tor would be able to access this. So if we change the page in the VM. So what I do with this, my abuse of Tor is I have several of my computers run Tor, and I have their SSH connected exposed as onion addresses because it sucks.
Amen to that.
So yeah, okay, my brain has more or less had it. Anything else? So any questions about setting up Tor daemon or hidden onion site? There's really not much to it. The biggest thing you have to do with setting up hidden onion, hidden services is you need to prevent what's called information leakage. Like if you have, this is much more a problem with Apache, because like Apache will not only broadcast that you're running Apache, it'll tell you which version of Apache. It'll tell you that it's running PHP, and oh, here's your mother's social security number. You know, it'll basically tell you everything you need to know in one handy little bit. And so Apache's OPSEC is not that great. I will note, just for completion's sake, that when we hidden services do have security advantages on just having Tor run over the public internet, because on the whole, it Wow, that was my brain of thought going, haha, screw you. So we might call this an early night tonight. I don't know if I can make it all the way to midnight. I mean, I am both tired and not tired at the same time. If we always want to have a chillax session, I have a complete collection of Windows NT from the Comdex beta versions all the way to NT4, and we can install Internet Explorer 1. Huh. There's a distinct lack of screaming. There should be more screaming on chat. Am I muted? No. Oh, okay. So, yeah, if anyone has any questions related to privacy, protecting yourself, metadata collection, I'd love to answer them. I think we can do a chill session. I think I've done my civic. How's the volume sound now? Is that better? It's going to sound different for you, Side Pocket, because you're a separate audio slider.
Right, exactly. Well, also, I can hear a direct feed from Discord, so you sound completely loud and clear towards me.
Yeah.
I do agree that you probably need to get some rest. And
you know, the thing is, I slept
I
all.
will say, unless you want to save it for next time, just because we're on a new stream right now, do you want to talk about, like, for a minute or two, when you used to work at Mixer and kind of what you did there? Or would you rather say?
Yeah, no, I can talk about that.
Okay.
We could do it.
Yeah, nice uplifting way to end this.
Yeah. So this was my. So we need to dial back the page. I'm gonna actually go full screen for this so I can pull up some websites.
Right.
So
For all you people watching on Mixer out there, get ready for this bomb drop.
So, no, actually, I do have a relatively positive experience about this. So my time at Mixer, it wasn't called Mixer at the time. Microsoft changed the name of the company when they bought it. I had applied for a job. So this is an NCOMMANDER story. Actually, I'm just going to go webcam here because I don't have anything to show. I had applied for a job as a Minecraft system at MC Pro Hosting as a system administrator. They are a Minecraft hosting site. Somehow, between applying for that job, the job I actually got, which again was designing a way to do low latency video in the web browser. You try and figure out how these two things are related. So, Beam, at the time, the biggest thing on the big giant meme was Twitch plays Pokemon. And for those of us who were there in the golden age of Twitch plays Pokemon, there was a 45 to 60 second stream delay. So what we wanted to do at Beam was we wanted to beat Twitch, and we wanted to do this by having low latency video streaming. And what we discovered that there's basically three ways to get video into a web browser. Option A, at the time, this was 2014, was Flash Player. And with Flash Player, we could get to about 500 milliseconds to a second video latency, but it was very iffy. The second was the video tag, which we would get about 5 to 6 seconds of latency. And then there was the less pretty option, which was WebRTC, which basically was zero latency but was so different that nothing could actually work with it. So we spent literal weeks trying to figure out how to solve the video latency problem. I was benchmarking it, and what the ultimate problem came down to was that the real-time video streaming on Twitch and most platforms use what's called RTMP, or Real-Time Media Protocol. It originally came from Adobe, and it's been used in a lot of places. Apple used it for their Darwin streaming server. So RMTP works very well, and it's very good for stuff that doesn't need to worry about latency. this wasn't going to work well with Mixer because Mixer, what they wanted was the ability to click buttons on the web page and have those controls show up on screen at real time. Basically, Twitch plays Pokemon without the 30-second delay. So, and the guy that ran Mixer really, really wanted to see the stream delay be like zip. So he got us all face to face, and in Berlin. I don't know why we did Berlin, but it was Berlin, and we were going around in circles because we knew that WebRTC could read our latency, but we couldn't figure out was how do we get the latency, how do we get the video stream from the streamer to our backends. Now, a part of this is under NDA, so I'm going to have to tap to ISO, but I can talk about the parts because Microsoft actually re-open sourced some of my code. It was open source, then it went away, and then it came back. So, I was playing the video game FTL, and I was playing with the Federation C ship, which is actually a really hard one. And I was thinking about this, and I had the eureka moment of we don't have to, because the big source of latency that we were dealing with was called muxing and demuxing, and I realized that if we control the encoder, if we set the encoder that we don't have to demux it, and we don't worry, and we accept the fact that the video audio may desync, latency problem solved. So this led to a lot of code prototyped. I coded up in Go because that's what they wanted me to. Yeah, I don't like Go, but it did work fairly well for this. And the very first FTL stream on Mixer was the NCommander account streaming Mixer on Mixer, or sorry, streaming FTL on FTL. It was unofficially named FTL, but the entire joke was that we were doing it so fast we were bending the space-time continuum. So the original version of FTL that never saw the light of day outside of Beam was three very complicated FFmpeg commands. I mean, this was about 300 plus side pocket 300 plus characters FFmpeg commands and a special negotiation daemon that I called Charon to make this all work. So the first major stress test of this, for those that play Minecraft, you probably know who Impulse SV is. I was with Impulse on a Skype call, basically duct taping this together, and we weren't expecting a huge viewing, but as it turns out, Hermitcraft was doing some sort of charity event, so we were expecting about 20 to 30 users. Our stress test was 150. It was the largest stream on Mixer at the time, and I was kind of shitting a brick because I didn't expect the code to, I was expecting the servers to combust trying to do this. So
I think at some point we're going to have to detail this again in a future episode, and I'll specifically tag, hey, if you stream on Mixer, come on and hear the story. But
oh yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Can you find that is that stream still exist? Or
no, okay, so we had a really bad problem with VODs because our VOD infrastructure wasn't built for VP8. I really don't want to say how we fixed it, but it was really bad. Like
id Software, if you detailed how you fixed it, it would make you and the rest of the team that worked on it look absolutely irresponsible if people knew.
Well, just knowing how it was coded, and I know for the fact that Microsoft is still actually using my code, which makes me think this has not actually been fixed. I really don't want to say how they're doing it because it will cause anyone with it's not bad from a security perspective, but I'm pretty sure the Band-Aid we did for VODs is still there. And I probably, if you looked real closely at the VODs and you see unusual artifacting, it's probably a really good hint of how I did it. And I still feel dirty about it.
I can't wait. I'm really hoping, and it seems likely, that PAX East will actually happen again next year. And
Ooh.
if so, I'm already coming out with like a preliminary outline of what we might cover because there's just so much to cover. Like after our panel alone, the past couple of months, there's been so much gaming hacks and news that we
God,
actually even have more stuff, not including the stuff that we weren't able to cover. And I definitely would love you to tell Mixer stories in front of a live audience because I think they would be highly
So hold
fascinating.
on, you're forgetting the bit about PAX about what happened being in a recorded room. Why don't you share that one with the crowd?
What's that story?
Why we couldn't have a live streamed room?
Oh, this is great. Um, so the big jits of it is
Well,
that
give
every
them the
company,
context of why we were at PAX.
Max was gung ho about us speaking there, and we're still working on a DEF CON 201 version of the stream. It's probably gonna be like the last video that goes up. Uh, but what we found out through PAX, and I think the statute of limitations are long enough that we can kind of sum it up, is that PAX was really excited to have us. We kind of realized that when we saw the crowd there finally, which NCOMMANDER can talk a bit about after this. But PAX East, like basically almost every company that was presenting there, especially the major ones that I won't name except for one, were crapping bricks that there were going to be computer hackers there that was going to go balls to the walls showing off. And we even wrote when we submitted the panel that, hey, we're only going to be doing known hacks. We're going to be showing off. Even if new hacks come out and we talk about them, we're not going to educate people on how exactly they work, like bit by bit, because we don't want people to emulate this stuff for not only legal reasons, but for like our protection and their protection. And which is why I think PAX East was really okay with the way we heard it, but companies were still scared that, like, you know, like we would be like, hey, like Animal Crossing is going to come out in a month. Here it is for free. Like that's what they were worried about. And the one who had the biggest cow was Sony. I'm going to call them out right now on this, especially for anyone at Microsoft at Mixer. This is your revenge here. They were having a cow, particularly over this, because they were going to be there, and they know about their history with all the different times their networks and hardware has been hacked and are still getting hacked. So basically, the only stipulation that we're allowed to run at the time was to not. We were allowed to have the biggest room that didn't have any live streaming equipment, which we did fill up that room entirely.
Yes, we did.
I'm going to work towards getting a live stream next time. The irony, for those of you who don't know, is that due to COVID and other issues, Sony had to pull out at the last minute. So they weren't even there, which we were like, oh, now that we're not there, we're going to super dunk on them.
Yes.
In the way now, even though I do understand why, and I do appreciate that Sony was going to do a PlayStation 5 reveal, and they did delay it because they want, like, the news to be, like, the current news to be, like, they don't want to be, like, you know, everyone's dying and be like, hi, we have a alien game. Like, that's just too immature and inappropriate. So I do agree with them on that. Like, good on them for that.
Yeah.
But, you know, it doesn't help that Sony has a history of, like, our president pulling out, so, except when it actually counts.
Oh, you went there. You went there. Yeah, you know, before COVID happened, we had so many. We basically had this. Me, Side Pocket, and Searcell were basically going to be on the conference venue because you had us lined up at everything. And then you know, then we had the pandemics. Like, well, this is depressing. We can live stream. It's like, okay, things are good. Oh God, everything's on fire.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, this is really testing our ability as like a hacker group and just like a social group in general to be really flexible. And I'm actually really shocked, impressed, and happy with how flexible we are. And even though I do a bunch of it, like here's a hidden secret. All the logos for all the shows and all the intro videos, I design and create them. But in terms of like the content and a lot of the other stuff, like DEF CON 201 is very much a team effort. Like I told my co-founder in the beginning, G.I. Jack, I could not do all of this just by myself. Like I need someone else there. And I was hoping our future members would be able to kick in, and everyone's just been absolutely amazing, which is why we appreciate you guys so much. I will say the funniest thing about PAX East for me, in terms of our panel, was
Lawyers.
I presented there. My first PAX East was 2012, and the first thing I did at PAX East was present there. I was presenting back when I had a basically business decision agreement with Nintendo. I ran a large Nintendo group in New York City for like 5 years, like it was for 3DS. It was a Street Pass group, and I ran it from when the 3DS came out all the way to when the Nintendo Switch came out, so like 5 years. And so that was my first ever thing at PAX East. And then last time I was there was 2015. I used to go there every year, and this is my first time back in 5 years. So even though it's a different year and they have different content, like the layout and the way they run the conference hasn't changed. So I was like, if they never had a hacker thing here, we should submit. And we got accepted. I'm like, guys, so the thing about PAX East is that everyone's really bored and hyped up on sugar and other things at PAX East. So when like you could have a panel about like, I don't know, like real life candy equivalents to the game Candy Crush, and you will still get over 600 people to show up at your panel. So like no matter how small your panel is, it's kind of like Hope to some degree, where like even the small panels are like large panels for most conventions. So like that's why the truly large panels like DEF CON are like ridiculously sized. So I was telling them, I'm like, I don't know how, I'm not going to hype you guys up, but between like the fact that we're hackers, this is the first time hackers have been here at DEF CON covering this topic. Despite also we were scheduled at the same time as one of our favorite people, which is Beta 64, which is the guy who collects and shows prototypes. We were scheduled at the same time. We actually found out we really wanted to see his panel, by the way. He apparently really wanted to see ours, and it was so great to counter him later. But besides the point, I was like, expect like if we get the big room, that would be at least half full. And when they did the queue, I think there was already 200 people in the queue in the first 3 minutes. And what was so fun was watching Duracell and NCOMMANDER's face, and this is the first time they've ever been to PAX East, and just watching their face as people slowly came in. When we filled up the room, we actually to bring all the people in the room, you actually went overtime, so we had extra minutes to present.
Yeah, they gave us extra. We wanted.
Well, this was my thing, really. I said, okay, I always hate when panels, when you like sit around and it's just like some generic rap music and all the panelists are talking and laughing and drinking water and everyone's like lining up all bored, and then they're like, please announce this panel, woo! And that's when the panel starts. So we thought to flavor it up and to be like, okay, we want to give them a hint of the type of insanity that they're going to walk into, like we're hackers, we're going to play up the image but for educational reasons. So I was like, let's play that video, that horrible video they showed in my childhood, the don't copy that floppy PSA, which is an anti-piracy PSA, like way back in the 90s. I think it's I think it was 94 it debuted in.
I'll drop the link.
And we were arguing of like, they're like, you guys were like, the video is like 10 minutes long. I'm like, no, we're not going to play the entire video. We're just going to play it until we have to start. And it took so long.
We looped it
to fill up the room that, if I remember correctly, I think fits slightly over 1,000 people. That we actually had to loop the video that was 10 minutes long, because that was funny. Just watching their face just slowly dive, like, oh my god, like they turned into strong bad. They were like, oh, dude, that's not a small number.
Well,
this is a big number, and I'm like, guys, breathe. It'll be fine. And then we just did it, and honestly, it went way better than I could ever thought, and I had high expectations. So,
well, the fact of the matter is, my co-presenters, which is SidePocket and Ciricel, are extremely talented. Dear God, the fact that Ciricel did that with PowerPoint still blows my mind.
Yes, I've never seen you like. I've only seen you talk like by yourself, and you did a really good job with Global Leaks, but I knew and I could tell you were like...
That was my first... Well, Global Leaks was the first time I ever spoke.
On stage, and it's like, you have no idea like how many diapers I went through talking on stage, because I'm like so nervous. And so I didn't know what you would be like in this setting, and like once it started, you had some very like great singers and audience interaction. Like basically, as I said in our prep talk, we have to work to screw this up, and we did great. And then we enjoyed the rest of PAX. Maybe that will be a conversation for a future thing. Maybe at our upcoming meetup on the 19th, we'll probably talk more about that.
I have that.
And we'll hopefully have the video.
I have that.
All I will say is, if PAX East is happening next year, and it seems like it is, I already have an outline, and I'm talking to other partners about what we could do to make it bigger and better, and we're totally submitting a sequel panel. Because if PAX likes you once and that was the reception, I think we're pretty guaranteed to come back unless something crazy happens. So and we have ideas, and we had a lot of topics we couldn't cover because we ran out of time, and there's new stuff. So I can't wait to hopefully like December, January show that off if we get accepted for even one of these things. So just, stay tuned.
I wouldn't even mind giving. I might even submit a talk to DEF CON with you guys on how to make your DEF CON group remote. Because Meta.
Yeah, no, something I've been meaning to message DEF CON staff is usually every year they have a DEF CON groups panel, and I wanted to ask are they doing that this year, and if they are, how they're doing it, because now that we can actually attend because we don't have to deal with flying and people writing in, our members writing in motorcycles turning into a lobster as they cross state lines.
Okay, we're sharing the DEF CON story here.
A bunch of other things that we can actually get involved with this, and every year since we started, people have asked, which Jack was honestly supposed to do 2 years ago. Because he was there, are we going to be at the DEF CON groups thing? Is there a DEF CON groups meetup? And I will say this right now, we're doing research for trying to do an online party. Like, even if we host parts of it in person, we want to do like an online party, because we were going to do one for Hope, but that's not going to happen now that Hope is virtualized. And we would love to be in a DEF CON groups, and I'm looking into myself personally helping out with some parts of DEF CON online, never mind all the other stuff going on. So I would say, actually, because I want to do this, let's submit that panel for Hope of like what it is like running a group like this for 3 years, and all the trials of like when we had to go remotely and changing venues 3 times. We could even probably rope NYC 2600 and a couple of other different groups into this, of like how do you just build communities from scratch when you don't know what you're doing, like we are. So
pretty much. Well,
that could be a whole thing.
I do think there's an important story we should tell for the group, and that's the Commander Jack goes to DEF CON story.
Okay. Here's what I will say. Save that. We just tease that. Save that. Next episode or during the meeting, let's bring up that story, especially during the meeting where we can all see our faces. Because my favorite thing, like what I did when I surprised Commander with the fact that we're on Mixer, and I did that unannounced. It was supposed to be during better times.
No, I noticed it. You didn't
just be like, "Oh, we're on Mixer. Oh, we're on Mixer." But if we tell that story, I want Jack to be awake, and I want to hear his voice and see his face when we tell that story. And you know what we'll actually do, because I actually have the file for it. I'll also post the picture apparently of him like that, because there's apparently one picture, and I actually have it on a drive and didn't notice it. So let's here's our conspiracy. Let's do that. See, we're already planning on torturing you, but see, that's what we love doing here. DEF CON 201 loves each other because we love torturing each other, but it's all in good fun.
Well, hold on. But the thing is that when we cross the one... Well, okay, so just context for people that are new. We crossed the $100 mark on my last stream, and we had promised that...
For COVID-19 research.
Yeah, and we had promised that if we hit $100, I was going to have to do something evil that the Chateau 201 crew was going to cook up, and I still don't know what it is. And then if we hit $200, I was going to be made to suffer in real life, which we did. So I have a sort of Damocles over my head.
The plan is right now. We were going to do this week, but because of all the insanity, it's been delayed to next week. We're right now in a chat room where myself, Jack, Neo, and Cell are each coming up individually with what we want to see you do. And I will say this: we're not going to be cruel. We're going to be hilarious, but not like actually cruel, because we're better than that. This is. You actually got
Neo to.
Rather than we hit we're I'll put it this way: you're not Trump. It's not going to be that level of thinking. We're going to each come up with a topic, and I think the strategy is that with the president with nuclear options, we're going to each post them. It's torture 1, torture 2, torture 3, torture 4, but the people in the public won't know what they are, who made them, and then everyone votes, and then whatever that one is, we're going to do. And later this month, we don't know what day or time, but we're going to do a special party live stream, and during that live stream, that's when we're going to have Commander do whatever you guys voted on. So it's just as much as your fault out there in the public as it is our fault, because you're going to be voting on it.
I should probably show them the clip of what happened when we hit $100.
Sure, you can do that, and I guess we should probably end the stream.
Yeah, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. We
probably need sleep at this point.
we usually go. I'm not actually tired, but usually we go to midnight.
Well, after this, I'm gonna head off, but I'm still gonna monitor chat and stuff. So.
Yeah, I think we've run up through our material. So if chat has any final questions, I think we're going to wrap it up here. Going once, going twice, 3 times. Actually, I'm going to count to 10 just because of this chat delay. 4, 5, 6, 6.5, 6 3/4, 7, 7 27ths.
Glad you're not using optical.
I could hack the planet. Hack the planet, folks.
Hack the planet. I do want to throw out there that, again, if you want to know more information out there, you can find us at defcon201.org. That's defcon201.org. That has also all of our social media. We're on Twitch, Instagram, Mastodon. We have a Minds, despite how crazy that place is, and we don't agree with all the politics there because it's full of lunatics. And you can find our streams also linked down there, as well as our Medium blog, where we're right now on, Twitch, DLive, YouTube, Periscope, and now Mixer. We might add one more thing, but I'm going to wait till I'm unbanned from that before we put that on there. And lastly, there will be I don't know if they're going to use Zoom now, but there will be a meeting for 2600 this Friday. You can go to nyc2600.net to find out details about that this Friday. A lot of us are going to be there. And this Sunday is going to be the second episode to what's called Master of Unlocking, hosted by me, or as a tool member or open organization of lock pickers. I don't know if we can hear on cam. That's my lock picking kit.
I can put you on cam.
Locks, and on that show, I teach you how to pick locks. And what am I going to be doing on there? And I might be doing some certain lock picking stuff that might help activists in a legal sense. Stay tuned. I'll see you Sunday at 8 p.m.
Yep. And as usual, my show is every Wednesday, 8 o'clock until when I get tired. So this is NCommander, and Side Pocket, say something.
Do not meditate while you're on amphetamines. Hack the planet.
And on that wonderful note, have a great night. Bye-bye, folks.